Hello everybody, this is the Retro Bear, once again welcoming you to the latest edition of Desert Island Games, and we have a cracking episode and a cracking guest on this particular instalment. If you haven't heard the format before, there are other episodes available on my channel, and I bring in a YouTuber to talk about their gaming history and also to talk about some games that have particular memories, their 6 favourite games in particular, which I asked them to pick. I also asked them to bring them on top of that one extra game, which is one they may have played and never got into, or started and never finished, or perhaps never had the time to put into it. And as a bit of fun at the end, we always ask them to bring along one game, which is one that they absolutely hate. And we've had some real crackers so far, and my guest tonight has got some games we haven't talked about before, which is always fantastic. I don't really know what to say that hasn't been said already about my guest today. Former YouTuber of the Year, a channel with over 22,000 subscribers. A video he did last year, I think it was, or maybe even early this year, I'll get my timelines mixed up, about the making of the Monkey Island game. Just had a double check on that. Nearly 300,000 views on that particular video. Just done a making of GoldenEye as well, interviewed developers on both those games, and doesn't really need an introduction from me, but he's going to get one anyway. It is on a retro tip. I will be calling him by his normal name, and that's Pete. Hello, Pete.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, very well. Thanks for that lovely introduction.
That's right. I hope I got it all right. I was frantically making notes before I came on from the things I remember from the past. But no, I mean, this is something that we hung over from last year. We were going to do it, I think, July and then October, and then it just never actually happened. So I'm pleased that you still wanted to do it, and obviously very delighted to get you on early in the run as well. So, and I know how much time is very precious, so it's great for you to come along and do this, and hope it's going to be a good episode as well.
Yeah, me too. Like, I really love the format, and I've been listening to the previous ones, and they're always really, really interesting. I think it's kind of an interesting glimpse into someone's life, isn't it?
That's it, and that's the reason I started doing it. We've got the YouTube front. We've all got the YouTube front, but it's more about the person behind that. Usually they're completely the same person. I mean, I always say I'm exactly the same person as I'm on camera as I'm in real life. There's no sort of character or YouTube character or facade behind it, and you always find that you want to know a bit more about them, and this is a perfect way to sort of do that. And a lot of people I've spoken to like the idea of it, like you said, and I think we found out some really interesting things about people who've done this so far.
I mean, it's a funny thing, is like, we've all got stuff in common, but everyone's had such a different journey, to where they are in terms of what they grew up with and what they played and what kind of has meaning to them. What are those special games in your life, so to speak. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's special moments as well, relating to consoles or games that you've had, or memories that relate to friends or family. I did a recent episode with somebody who was talking about exactly that same sort of thing. So it's really interesting. But I mean, we've got some cracking gaming history here. We're going to approach it slightly differently than we've done before, but I think that's going to be a good way. Also, your game list as well. I was disappointed when I messaged you yesterday and you said, can you change one game for another? I was a little disappointed, but I wasn't surprised, because I thought we haven't had that one before. That would have been great to talk about that one, but that's fine. We can mention it later.
Yeah, we'll give it an honourable mention. That's it.
Because it's always nice to have games on that I haven't spoken about before, and I think maybe 4 or 5 of these ones you give me today we've never spoken about before with other people, so that's great. As I always do before we start off, for anybody who isn't aware of yourself on YouTube and what you do, give you a little bit of a platform just to say a few words, and if anybody hasn't heard from you before, also to say that the link to your channel will be in the description below, so if anybody wants to go and look at your channel as well who don't know what you do and really like the sound of it, they can go and do that. So the floor is yours for the moment.
Oh God. Yeah, I've got a channel, it's linked down below, go and have a look. Games and that. I don't really know what to say. That's like a weird thing. You mentioned the 2 documentaries, GoldenEye and Monkey Island. I'm really proud of those. So if you guys haven't seen my channel, go and watch those. They're pretty pretty cool. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. They're absolutely interesting to make for me as well. So
That Monkey Island one is absolutely fantastic. I mean, the way that
thanks.
video shot off, I know you were surprised by how many people were sort of watching it, and when it premiered, was that right? There was a huge amount of people watching the premiere. And was that this year? Or was it last year? I can't remember.
I think it was October.
That's right. Yeah, as the time passes so quickly, doesn't it? Yeah,
because it was pretty much within a couple of days. It was the 30th anniversary of Monkey Island, which, geez, I mean, where's that time gone? But yeah, I mean that was like amazing response to that, and like the guy who made the where they remastered the special editions of Monkey Island 1 and 2, the guy who actually remastered them tweeted out my documentary saying, "Oh, thanks for making this," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what is happening?" And that's just unbelievable.
But it's one of those things. I mentioned at the start, you've got a sizable amount of subscribers, which most of us who do this dream of having. In fact, I think if I had all the people I subscribe to, we still wouldn't have the same number you have. But to have that sort of recognition to do that documentary, to have that sort of response to it, I mean, that must have felt fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel fantastic. And at the end of the day, like, we all do this as a hobby. To see like a really positive reaction from something that you kind of did on the side as a hobby is really great. And like, more than the views, because like the GoldenEye one hasn't got that many views, but the thing they both have in common, those two videos, is just such nice comments.
Yeah.
And just people like being really thankful and saying thanks. And and to me, just someone saying thank you is like, that is insane. And that it means a lot. It means like more than some arbitrary number of subscribers or views or whatever. But like, when you see someone that's actually grateful and actually enjoyed it, that's just fantastic.
And something you're proud of as well, to get that recognition on top of something that you put a lot of work into, has made it all, that worthwhile feeling you get from it is, well, I mean, I do video. I've done videos I'm proud of, and if they get 300-400 views, I'm quite happy. Well, I can't imagine just putting. I mean, that Monkey Island video, I think it's about an hour and 3/4 long. I think something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah,
it's quite long. Yeah.
But yeah, the time and effort to put into that, to edit it down, to put it all together, and then to get that response and the comments that you've had from people associated with the game and the history from it, and everybody. People who play Monkey Island have got fond memories of it, so it's one of those games that everybody recalls from that era. It's absolutely fantastic to see that, and that's brilliant. And yeah, the GoldenEye one hasn't quite done as perhaps as well as the other one, but I'm surprised at that, because everyone talks about GoldenEye. It's one of those games that the people go on and on and on about.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's the YouTube lottery. Like, it's total lottery whether YouTube promotes your video or not, and you win some, you lose some. But I mean, at the end of the day, I look at it and I could say, okay, I think it's got like 12,000 views, and I can compare it to the Monkey Island one. But when I started making videos, never imagined 12,000 people would watch any of my videos. So you've got to be realistic about it.
You have to be.
But even if nobody watches them, I still got to interview all those people, which is like a win. It's already a win before I've even done. But yeah, I was really proud of the GoldenEye one. I thought that like the editing and everything and the structure was much better than the Monkey Island one, just because it was like the second one I'd done, and I kind of knew a little bit about structuring it and planning it out a bit better.
Have you got any more lined up?
Have I? Yeah. I have.
I'm not asking you to say if you have what it is. I'm just interested to sort of...
I've got a very small one I'm going to do, because I'm just going to interview one guy who's involved with this certain game, and I'm just going to do like a mini one. So I'm a bit burnt out from doing like these a massive 5-month long thing. In fact, you know what? When I finished that Goldeneye one, I didn't do any video stuff for like 2 months. Nothing. I was just working through a little backlog I had, just uploading that, but I didn't like touch my editing software at all. I just couldn't face it. But yeah, I do have another one coming, which is like it's like a series I used to do, but now I do very rarely, called Developer Spotlight, where it's more looking at, like, rather than one game, it's like looking at the history of a certain developer.
Yes, yeah.
And I've got one of those coming on Sensible Software.
Oh, fantastic!
With a couple of the team interviewed, so that should hopefully be a good one.
Well, I hope that does well for you, because again, that's a software house that a lot of people from that generation, going back to my generation, grew up playing games, and yours as well. He's going to sort of be very relevant and interesting to do. So I look forward to seeing that, and I hope it goes well for you as well. So it's a really good subject. No, that's no problem, mate. On your channel, the one series I do like is the cancelled games. I do like that. I do enjoy watching those and seeing what might have been. And yeah, it's. Have you done most of the systems on that now? Have you?
Yeah,
most of you. You've sort of run out of them now.
I am kind of running out. Like, I think I've got, like, sometimes I'll research and I'm like, there's not enough to get an episode out of that, so I have to scrap it. Like, I think PC Engine was like a no-go, and you got to be like, you got to be ruthless, really, because there's so many cancelled games, but you're like, either there's no information on it, or there's like one shitty picture. You can't just put that on screen and talk for like 3 minutes. And people are always like, "Oh, you forgot so and so game." It's like, no, I didn't forget. I deliberately didn't include it because there's nothing out there. What am I gonna do? Just stare at a picture for 3 minutes? But I was thinking, like, shall I? I was looking at that series. I've been doing that series for like 4 years, which is mental. And I thought, shall I just knock it on the head? But I really like it. I like, it's really interesting. Like, learning about all the cancelled stuff. Because I never make anything that's not interesting to me. I'm not.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I don't get these people who like doing clickbait and doing the in thing. It must be so boring, man. Like, I've got to be really into it if I'm going to sacrifice my my free time to research and edit a video. My brain's gone. What were we talking about? Oh, cancelled games.
Cancelled games.
Jesus.
It is warm tonight, Pete. We've got
so hot.
That to back us up here.
But yeah, I might start doing like little spin-off ones. Like I did a couple of spin-off ones. I did like a Marvel one and a DC one.
Yes, I remember watching that one. Yeah,
they're quite fun. I might do some genre ones. Like I might do a wrestling one and like fighting games and stuff like that. People ask for them all the time, though, those ones, and it does kind of interest me because, like I said, I started doing it 4 years ago, and the amount of cancelled games that have like arisen in the last 4 years that haven't been included in the prior episodes is quite a lot. So yeah, maybe
you might get a bit more out of it. That's good. Right, so that's about that. Like I said, the link to Pete's channel below. Do go across and have a look at some of that content. Some of it's truly brilliant and fully deserving of the number of subscribers. And that Monkey Island video, like I said, if you're from that era that we're from, the early 90s, you'd know Monkey Island. It's just worth just sitting down and putting it on, and it's brilliant, absolutely superb. Can't speak highly enough of it. So that's great. Let's therefore now move from that and then get on to your gaming history, which is where we start. And as we said, slightly different because you've got quite a bit here, and it may be best just sort of wing it on this particular occasion rather than go through a particular structure. So I'll just keep sort of throw it over to you. But I mean, going back to the early days again, you've got some old systems which we talk about initially. So you want to kick us off with where you started, and we'll go through from there.
Yeah, I mean, I apologise for mixing the structure up, and I think it's probably partly due to my terrible memory.
No, that's okay, because so sometimes people can't recall certain things, and it comes back to them during the conversation. So it's probably best to just, as we said, just go through it like this, and we'll pick up on anything. And if you don't mention anything which I've written down here, I can always try and jog your memory.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely started with the little LCD handheld games. We're probably talking 1985-ish. So I was born 1980, so I'd have been 4 in 1985. So it would have been roughly then. Yeah, and I remember that some of them I had is it Sistema or Sistema? I never know how you pronounce it, but
I've never heard of it.
Have you not? They do little LCD games, and they had one that was it was red, and it was just a racing game. Forget what it was called now. And they had a yellow. I had a yellow and black one. It was called Vampire Attack. I remember those really distinctly. And then at some point, I got the Donkey Kong Game and Watch.
Right.
The orange one. I loved that. Oh my god, that was just fantastic. And it was quite cool. It was kind of like the upmarket LCD because it's quite a nice presentation. It's got like this sort of metallic finish on the top, and it opens up, and it's like quite nicely made. So it kind of felt a bit high end to 5-year-old me at the time.
Yeah, that must have been great idea to have that at that age as well. I remember I'd never had one, but I remember seeing people with them, and you get rather. You just mentioned the top, the eye-catching design on the top. You just, what's that? It's a bit different as you compare to the other LCD handhelds that are around at the time. The Game and Watch completely different. It's like, it flipped out as well. That's rather novel, isn't it?
Yeah, really
get
cool.
Very jealous of people of things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of jealousy going around in the 80s, I think, for kids. So the amount of toys and like that kind of stuff that were out. And it was, I at one point as well, I got the Konami one, the Turtles one, which is like a long.
That's the green one, isn't it?
Yeah, that one I had. But like mates had them. Like mates had, like the other Konami ones, either the just random generic ones like the Sistema ones or Sistema or whatever it's called, and then people had Game and Watches, and some people had those little tabletop things.
I was just going to say, did you have any contact with tabletop? There was things like Scramble, Firefox X7. Mrs. Bear picked one up to repair a few months ago. Absolutely, just brought back so many memories.
I always coveted them, and I'd go around friends' houses who had them. I always wanted one, but I never got one. Yeah,
I was the same because a lot of people I knew had one. Galaxy Invader was big, like the yellow one, with the 2 big fire buttons. The little they were brilliant. They really captured the imagination.
Yeah, I mean that's what we had really. Like those handhelds and those tabletops were games really back then. Like consoles weren't a thing. Like the Atari was out, right? But no one ever had an Atari. Like I never saw an Atari or a games console until the NES, and people had computers, but back then, like it was very primitive computer wise, wasn't it?
That's right. That sort of early to mid 1980s was pretty basic stuff. And you mentioned the Atari. I mean, we had one when I was growing up. I was born a little bit before you, not about 4 or 5 years before you, but we had one of those growing up. But that was it. I didn't know anybody with a computer until sort of the mid to late 80s when people had Spectrums and whatever. But the Atari was the only one I saw when I was a kid. You didn't see anything else.
Wow, yeah. I honestly never saw an Atari.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody I went to school with always spoke about the Atari. Oh, did you have the Atari when you were a kid? Yeah, we had the Atari. Yeah, everybody I used to know used to come up with that story. Whether they moved on to gaming wise after that, or whether they didn't game ever, it was like, oh yeah, we had an Atari. I don't know. Just must be around here, I suppose.
Maybe I was just like too young. Too young at that age. And you know what? For me at that age, it was actually all about toys. Like when Christmas came. Even like into the late 80s, I wasn't like, oh, I want a Nintendo or whatever. I was like, I want He-Man figures, I want Thundercats, Ghostbusters, Action Force. You know,
Yeah.
it was all toys, man.
Oh, it was a great time for the toys, wasn't it? In the 80s, all
Mm,
those TV series of tie-ins, when you GoBots mask,
yeah.
when people now go back and try and collect and find out the prices are ridiculously stupid for box stuff, which is, but
It was
they
a
stood the
funny
test of time.
time, but yeah, they have stood the test of time. You're right. I mean, it was a funny time because it all. I think. I mean, I'm sure it all stems from Japan, and they invented the idea of just creating cartoons just to sell toys.
That's right. That's right.
Right. So I think Transformers was the first big one where they were like, let's make this show Transformers, and we'll just have these toys that transform into vehicles and bang, easy money, which it was. And then Transformers, and so like when I was 4 or 5 or 6, where you're just first really starting to get into that like interest in cartoons and stuff, was when they were just releasing all these cartoons that just mashed up kids' brains to go, I want to buy the toys. So like I think the 80s, any 80s kids would say the same, that you just wanted toys because it was like subliminal advertising on TV every day,
Yeah, everything tied. It all tied in together. As you said, it's just what they came out with next. So here's the next idea. I mean, Transformers He-Man were probably from my youth. Were the ones that I remember. I mean, by sort of 85, I would have been about 10 years old. So probably at the end of moving on to something else, I was just as that sort of stuff was catching popularity.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like GoBots and what's that one? The hologram one. I can never remember. Visionaries. Yeah, things like that. But I'm a classic cartoon person. I prefer cartoons with dogs and bears wearing hats and things like that. So that sort of new style of cartoon based around action and adventure. And everyone talks about the Ulysses 31 and Jason the World Warriors. I never got into that. It wasn't because I was too old, because I love cartoons still. Give me, show me old cartoons, I'll happily sit there and watch them.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because, like, as much as I love all that stuff, if you put on an episode of like Ulysses or Visionaries or Thundercats now, I could watch it. But if you put on an episode of like Tom and Jerry, I will laugh. And those old cartoons are never going to make me laugh, really. Maybe ironically, I remember there's this one episode of Thundercats. I know we're veering way off games here. I do apologize.
Veer away. It's fine.
There's this one episode of Thundercats where like Snarf saved the day by getting a ride on a bat, like this giant bat, right? And they always have the little joke at the end, which is always terrible. Yeah. And they're all like around there together, and they're like, cheers for saving us, Snarf, and all that. And the bat is flying around, and they're like, why is the bat flying around? And it turns out it was the bat was a taxi, right? and Snarf goes, oh, he gave me a ride here to save you, but I forgot to pay him. And then they all just laugh. And I always remember thinking, that's not funny. That's that bat's livelihood.
Yeah. Yeah, who's paid the bats? No one's paid the bat. Pay the bat. Well, if you're wearing loincloths and things, they don't carry loose change, do they? That's probably what it was. But...
yeah, I mean, the concept of money does exist on that planet, apparently. But yeah, it's not funny like Tom and Jerry, the old classics, are funny. They're timelessly funny. So I agree with you about the like you say, cartoons with dogs and cats in, but they are sort of timeless.
The only cartoon that sort of action adventure was Battle of the Planets, the only one I ever got into, but that was because when that was first shown on TV, it was round about when I was 4 or 5 years old. So that immediately sort of like drew me in, and that was probably the only one of those sorts I really enjoyed. Otherwise, it was the staple, Yogi Bear and Scooby Doo and things like that.
Oh,
I'm.
Scooby-Doo.
It's funny you mentioned Tom and Jerry, because I've just this past weekend bought the Tom and Jerry DVD, which has got all the cartoons on it.
Wow.
I'm not sure it's complete. I'm pretty sure I read it came out years ago. I'm pretty sure there may be one or two missing off it. I dare say it's got some editing in it as well, and it also contains the ones that they made after in the 60s, which Chuck Jones did as well. I know we're going way off topic here, but this is relevant. I like talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's got all those, about 156 cartoons across 6 discs. So it's
Wow.
a ridiculous amount. So I picked it up for the weekend. But I noticed a couple of weeks ago there's a new cartoon coming to HBO Max in America. They recently did, in the last couple of years, a new version of Looney Tunes.
All right.
Which I didn't like, because I think, again, time's passed on that. But they're doing something called Jellystone, which is basically taking old Hanna-Barbera characters and putting them into like a modern village setting. And they've all got different jobs, like Yogi Bear's a doctor. And it premieres in America at the end of the month, and I've got this horrible feeling it's going to be crap, but I want to watch it. It's slightly updated animation style, but all the characters are recognisable. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But again, that's my era, so I would at least give that a once watch and go, yes, Mrs. Bear's under the impression it's going to be absolutely terrible, but I've got to watch it just to satisfy my curiosity on that. Yes, strange one, that one. So we were talking about Atari 2600.
Yeah.
So you never saw one of those. So from moving on from the handhelds, the LCDs, where did you sort of move from there?
So from the handhelds, it was going to other people's houses. So it's funny because like I now live in the town where I grew up, and I moved back here a couple of years ago, and I drive around, and like if like when you're driving home from work and you're on autopilot, and whenever I drive past houses, I'm like ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, and I always remember the people who lived there and what they had.
Yeah,
which is funny. But I had people who had all sorts, like Amstrad, Specky, Commodore 64. Like my mate's older brother had a Commodore 64, and we could only use it when he was out, and we'd sneak in his room and we'd use it. And occasionally get caught and get chased out of the room. And my mate, one of my very good mates down the road, had a BBC Micro, and obviously we got BBCs in schools back then, and we did play a few games at school. I know everybody says when they talk about the BBC, they're like, "Oh yeah, we played Granny's Garden," which is like a text adventure. We used to play Strikers Run at school, which is awesome, like a little side-scrolling shooter thing. Like,
yes, I have heard of that. I was going to jump in there because you mentioned Granny's Garden. I used to play that a lot because my dad was a teacher.
Right.
And he used to bring home a BBC Micro for the summer. I don't know why, he never used it.
Oh, wow.
But he used to bring some discs home with it, and there'd obviously be the educational software in there. And Granny's Garden was what I always remember. There's one very, very similar called Mallory Manor, which was like a whodunit set in a stately home, which was really weird.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah, but Granny's Garden, that was one I remember. I remember we had them at school as well, because it always used to be exciting when they used to turn the games on. You'd have like an IT. Oh yeah, we're going to turn the games on this time, so you could play Way of the Exploding Fist, which I think was the one I remember. What's that one with the yo-yo as well? Was it Frack?
Yeah, Frack.
Yeah. That was the other one. That I remember.
Purple screen.
That's the one. Yeah, but we had access to a BBC Micro back then, but only the educational stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky. My mate had a lot of games. So, like, it's funny when I do, like, BBC videos and people are like, oh, my God, like, these look amazing. Because they've only played text adventures. They don't realise what the BBC was capable of. And by the late 80s, stuff people were doing on the BBC was incredible. You had things like Elite, which was groundbreaking, and Exile. I don't know if you know Exile, but it was...
Yes, I do, yeah.
Digitized speech, because it had the enemy that used to go, "You die," and we'd be like, "Oh my God, it's talking. This is nuts." And the BBC was an interesting one because the speakers are like in the BBC.
Yeah, it's on top, isn't it? It's a top left-hand corner.
Yeah, so
Right. Cool. Yeah.
it's awkward for adjusting the volume and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I never got into this. This is better than that thing. As a kid, I just loved playing games, and when I went to someone's house, whether it was a Spectrum or a BBC or a C64 or whatever it was, I was just happy that there was games, and we played them. So.
You mentioned Amstrad. You actually knew somebody with an Amstrad when you were growing up.
Yeah, I had a mate with an Amstrad.
Wow.
Yeah.
You get bullied a lot.
Well, no, like I said, I don't think there was any. There was none of that here. Like it was just, we like games,
Well, that's. I mean, it was either you had a Spectrum, so if you hear a banging in the background, it's a car going past, misfiring. Sorry. It was always Spectrum or Commodore 64. No one ever had anything else. The only person I knew who had something different was a friend of mine who had a 16+4, which is the only time I've ever sort of come across one of those in my entire life. I know people have got them now, but I'd never seen one. And it was just a completely stripped back version of the Commodore 64. He had a Atari Warriors, and I'd been playing that on the Commodore 64 and then seen the 16+4 version. I was like, ugh.
Oh dear.
It's a bit of a come down, this one, but I've never seen one before or after, so very strange that.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
So
shall I just carry on with the?
Yes. Yeah. Carry on. We'll do a little bit more, and then we'll jump onto your games and get cracking with that. Yeah.
So I also had a mate who lived on the corner where my parents now still live. And he lived on the corner, and he had two brothers, and they had an Apple II in like the dad's office.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was like mind blowing. Like they must have had a decent amount of money.
Yes, it does something like that, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was I remember playing like a few games on that. But what's really memorable about them is when I was a kid in the 80s. Like no one had games consoles, and I mean no one, like literally nobody, because they were too expensive. Like when I was like 8-9 years old, and we lived in like a reasonably affluent area, no one was going to their parents, I want an NES for Christmas, because the parents would be like, that's insane, that's like £100 or whatever it was. That was way too much money. And I think at the time, if I wanted something like, that was like worth £40, then I'd sort of pull my birthday and Christmas money together to get it. So the idea of getting an NES was absolutely insane. And my mate over the road, who was like 2 years older than me, he had two older brothers, and they said to their parents, if we pull all three of us, can we get an NES? And they got an NES with the light gun and duck hunt.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so I spent a hell of a lot of time around there. And they actually had they had like a really big house, so they had a lounge, and then like the dad's office was off the lounge with the Apple II. Then they had another lounge which was quote unquote called the playroom, they called it, where it was like another lounge where they could stick the kids so the parents could have a chill or whatever. And I always remember that house so well because like we never had a sandwich toaster at my house, and his mum used to make me like cheese and bean cheese toasties, and I thought they were like the best thing ever. Best thing since sliced bread. No pun intended. And they had a soda stream as well, right?
Oh, I had a soda stream.
Did you?
Yeah,
and I'd never seen one of them either. I mean, they were a bit older than me, so like, they had some cool stuff. And funnily enough, like I remember, like, because obviously Star Wars toys, just very briefly going back to toys, Star Wars toys are obviously massive in the 80s. And I had like a really big collection because every birthday and Christmas for like years, I just wanted Star Wars figures, right? Or like a vehicle, every now and again, a vehicle. And all three of those brothers did the same throughout the whole 80s. And towards the late 80s, the mum goes, right, they're too old for them. Do you want them all? So I got 3 extra collections. So I had 4 full collections of Star Wars figures.
Wow.
So I had literally hundreds of figures. I had like all the vehicles. I had like, 10 stormtroopers and you know, AT-AT and like, you know, just like loads of everything. It was mental. But anyway, they had an NES with a light gun and Duck Hunt and Mario, and then like I think over the years, like that few years, they got Mega Man 2, they got Mario Brothers 3, which was just mind blowing. That was like you know, that was like such a huge step up, Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah.
What else they have? They had Super Spike V Ball, the volleyball one.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, and they had Double Dribble as well, basketball. I think that's the only ones I remember. Because you know that's the thing. Like you managed to get a console at that age, and then you've got another hurdle of actually affording the games. You know.
Well, I remember seeing. I mean, again going back to people with Amstrad, I never knew anybody with an NES. So, but I did see them in the shops, and I remember sort of looking at them and the prices of the games. Like, wow, it was just who can afford something like that? When you sort of look at the Commodore 64 games you could buy for like $2.99 or $9.99. It's a complete world apart to look at, you know, $39.99 for a cartridge, I think, probably.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
That's you know, the console in itself, if you think about it, is probably, I think the set you were talking about probably would have been like 150 quid.
Yeah.
And the games were like 25% the price of the console.
I think, you know, people moan. Yeah, it is mega money. I think people moan about like the price of games today, like, oh, games 40 quid. But, you know, games were 40 quid in the 80s. And if you factor in inflation, it's like 200 quid for a game.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, when the Nintendo 64 came out, the games were like 65 quid. Mega Drive, Street Fighter was 65 quid.
Yeah, the Super Nintendo was Street Fighter was 65 quid. Yeah. A friend of mine bought one.
Jeez, it's an insane amount of money.
Yeah, and you're right about the price of games, because that top line 40 quid figure we sort of throw out hasn't changed over the years. It was 40 quid at the end of the 80s. It's still £40 now. Okay, as you said, inflation, it would have been a lot more back then, but that number hasn't changed a great deal.
But no other media has, or anything, nothing has done that. Right, it's fascinating. Like I was saying to the missus the other day, like look at for example, like games were 40 quid in the 80s, games were 40 quid now, right? In like 1996, I'd go to cinema for £3. Now it's like £14 here.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, you're absolutely right. It's I can't argue with that. I'm trying to think of something to say, but I can't argue with that. No, it's absolutely right. Everything else has gone up and moved on, and the top end price of games has stayed the same. Granted, you have to pay a bit more for the collector's editions and the special editions and the ones they bring out for collectors. I can understand that, but we didn't have those sets back then. It was just a box standard set, wasn't it? There was no buy this and you get a booklet and etc. inside. They didn't make sets like that back then.
No, although, like, you know, especially with the big box games like Amiga and PC and Atari ST, you got a lot more gubbins in just the regular box, didn't you? You know, you get like if you bought a flight sim back then, you got like a technical manual for a real plane with it, literally.
Yes, it was. I picked up some of those last year. The weight and the box of I got Silence Service 2, and I got a couple of flight simulators for the Amiga. The way the box is just good. So you open it up, there's, you know, maybe a few discs in there. That's it. And the manual of, you know, size, you know, thickness of a loaf of bread. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then, you know, we had stuff like the fancy, you know, these funny copy protection things they'd have, and like maybe a keyboard layout. Like if it's a complicated, like especially with the flight sims, you'd have like the keyboard mapping and everything.
That's right. Yeah. Oh dear me.
Yeah.
You don't get that nowadays. I know that's probably a good thing or a bad thing. The only thing that comes close to that is a Steel Battalion set on the Xbox with the sort of tank controls. Which I'd like one of those one day, just to say I've got one of those.
It's enormous, so aren't they?
Yeah, and they're about 200 quid, so maybe not worth doing something like that. Let's take a break from gaming history for the moment, and let's talk about a couple of the games, because that's the sort of crux of the program, really, to sort of see what you've talked about. Actually, you got 6, I think, really sort of interesting games here. Let's start off with your first one. If you remember what we talked the Leicester City yesterday.
I can vaguely remember them.
Yeah. So if you whatever you can remember, and we'll just
what
start
order
with
we wanted to do them in?
any particular order you want. Mate.
Chronological, maybe.
It doesn't have to. I don't usually go with chronological. People just give me a list and we just work off that list.
Let's have a look then. Let's go with a bit of Game Boy Advance.
Okay.
Yeah, Advance Wars 2.
Game I know nothing about, so I'm now completely and utterly at your disposal to tell me all about all this game.
Now, I'd just like to preface this by saying that when I picked these games, because of how my brain works, I was like, I'm actually on a desert island, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I left out a lot of my like really beloved games. Like, for example, Monkey Island, right?
Yeah.
Probably my all-time favorite game. Can complete it in an hour and a half. It's not enough meat. So I'm like, no, I'm not taking that to the island because it's not meaty enough, you know. And so I pick games that I'm going to get like a load of time out of, a load of replay.
I can see you thought this through. This is good. This is good.
So Advance Wars 2 is one of the games that I've got the most time out of ever. It came out in something like 2003, I believe. So I would have been 22. And I had a Game Boy Advance. Bought Game Boy Advance SP out in the States, I remember. And I got Advance Wars 2. And I think it was kind of on a whim. I didn't really know anything about it. I possibly even bought it out there in the States. I needed something to play while I was there, you know. And just discovered this game that's now one of my all-time favorite games. And it's so weird that every year I play it, but I will play it for like 3 months. And I'm in that at the moment. So I've played Advance Wars every night for the last 3 months.
Wow.
No joke. I'll go to bed, and like whenever I go to bed, I always like will watch something, or I'll watch a bit of YouTube or whatever, and I'll just sit and I'll play one like level or whatever of Advance Wars 2. So I can, and I'll do that every year. Like I'll leave it and then I'll play Advance Wars 2. And I try and play similar games, you know, like modern games. Like the guys who created the game, they make the Fire Emblem series, so they've kind of left Advance Wars to do that. And I tried to play that, and I was like, nah, I'll just go back to Advance Wars. You know what I mean? So I just constantly playing it, and it's the game is a turn-based strategy, and it's got this like cutesy sort of cartoony style, which really fits the Game Boy Advance really well. And basically, you just command troops. So you have like infantry, and you have various different vehicles and tanks, and then you have planes and boats, and they all do different things. They've all got different like movement range and different firepower and defense and all that jazz. And you just basically you have either 1 or 2 or 3 opponents, and then you just battle it out basically. And there's 2 ways to win. You can either like destroy all the enemy troops, or you can capture all the enemy headquarters. So each team, so to speak, has various factories where they can build vehicles or infantry, and they have like ports where they can build boats, and they have airports where they can build planes, and then like cities, which are just like squares that are owned by you, but they don't do anything. So the reason you want to capture as many cities and stuff like that is each one you own, when you capture it, so it takes 2 turns to capture a building or a city or whatever. And each one of those you own in your color, you get 1,000 whatever currency income per turn. And obviously that currency you then use to build your vehicles and all that jazz. So you also have a headquarters, and that's your like stronghold. So if an enemy captures your stronghold, or you capture an enemy stronghold, then all of their color tiles automatically change into yours. So it's kind of like an interesting strategy thing, because you can just blitz the enemy and kill them all, but it's kind of more cunning to try and infiltrate and capture their headquarters, because then you automatically get all their bases turned to your color. Whereas if you just killed them, they would just turn to a neutral color, and then you have to go through the process of capturing them all one by one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's like a different, they call them COs, so obviously commanding officer, and you have different ones, and they all have a different power, and there's 2 powers. And what happens is, the more you attack or you are attacked, the more this meter fills up. And then you have like a lower attack and a strong attack. So like, let's say on some of them, when the meter's halfway, it'll activate. You can do the first attack if you want, or you can wait until it's completely full and you can do this bigger, better attack. So the CO that I really like is called Colin, and his first bar is really small. It only takes like 2 stars to fill the first bar. So you can get there constantly. And that power is, it turns all your money into 1.5 times value. So you save up your money, you got 50,000, you activate this, and you can suddenly got 75,000. Happy days, you can build a shitload of stuff, right? And then after a while, when you've got a decent army and you can let the money just keep building up, and it's a decent amount, you let it go to the full bar. And his mega power thing is to convert your money into power. Although it doesn't take your money, it just says, if you've got 50,000, we'll add this much to your attack. So because of the 1.5 times thing, you can get like 500,000, I think it caps out at 1 million, but you can get like 500,000 gold or whatever. And then you convert that to power. And then like your worst crappy unit is doing like 500% damage to like a mega tank thing, so he's like awesome character. But they all got different like strategies, like they might be better at capturing, or they're better at attacking, or they're better at like plane movement and attacks and stuff like that. So like it's strategic like tactics depending on who your opponent is and everything. But it's amazing. I could talk about this game for so long, man. So you've got like a really cool campaign, which is like a huge campaign of missions where you get to control all the different CEOs and everything. Then there's what's called a war room, which is like sort of like practice ones. And then you've got this versus mode, which is just like a load of just random sort of 1 level games. So you've got like the war room ones in there. There's a load of versus maps. There's 3-player maps. There's 4-player maps. And then you can create and save your own maps. So you can design your own level and save those and play those. That's really fun. And obviously, I mean, most people will be aware that they're releasing these on the Switch, Advance Wars 1 and 2 as a bundle.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it's called Advance Wars whatever collection or whatever it's called. But it's coming out on Switch. But if you haven't played it, I can't recommend getting that game enough, because it's like, if you end up liking the game, you get so much money's worth out of that game. And I'm in 2 minds about buying it, because I still play the Game Boy Advance one all the time. There's really no need for me to buy it. But the one factor that will sway me is if they allow the creating map thing, and they allow you to share them online, because that will just open up the amount of gameplay to essentially infinite scale. I think on the Game Boy Advance you can only save 3 at any one time.
Yeah. You thought with the Switch's capability they would do something like that. I'm more amazed at it. I mean, it sounds so in depth. It really does. And the fact this game was on a Game Boy Advance as well, which just sounds absolutely astonishing to have a game that size on a handheld console.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so far beyond any other Game Boy Advance game I've played. It's ridiculous, Yeah, it's absolutely outstanding for the hardware, really.
Yeah, it's a good little console. I've got 2 or 3, and I love the GBA. It's really good, but I might have to keep an eye on that one. I said, one of the interesting is hear about games I don't know an awful lot about. And even though I will be honest with you, that isn't my sort of game, having listened to this, I was like, that sounds quite interesting, that. Perhaps I shall have a look at it when it comes out on the Switch. Maybe.
I'm actually streaming it tomorrow night, although that'll be in the past when this goes up, I'd imagine.
Yes,
But
that's very true. Yeah,
but yeah, if you want to have a look at it,
night, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I shall certainly have a look at that. I'm intrigued now. You got me interested in that. It also cost me a lot of money, this program, because people bring up these games and go, oh yeah, that sounds really good, I'll make a note of that, and if I see it out about or whatever, I'll pick it up. Okay, so that's Advance Wars 2 on the GBA as your first one. Let's have another one from that list then, Pete. So
Okay.
I think I know where you might go next.
Oh, you do?
No, I don't. I'm just saying. Say it if I know. We said we're random, so
let's mix it up a bit and stick a more modern one in there. So PS3.
Mm-hmm.
The PS3 is one of my favourite consoles of all time. Absolutely love the PS3.
I do as well. I don't know some other people don't like it.
Oh, I love it, and I think there's been a decline since the PS3 in my enthusiasm for modern gaming. PS3 kind of peaked really. And I don't know what it was about the PS3. Maybe it was because that was maybe a time when I was really getting like heavily back into playing games, because for a lot of my early 20s I've been doing other stuff. I don't know what it is, but anyway, the pick is Fallout New Vegas.
Then Fallout New Vegas. Okay. Just before we get into that, just mention the PS3 very, very quickly. Did you have a decision to make between buying a 360 or a PlayStation 3, or did you have the 360 at the time, or was it just you just picked the PlayStation 3?
There was no decision. It was always going to be PlayStation 3. The only time I bought an Xbox 360 was I bought one about, God, it must have been eight or 10 years ago, and it was a JTAG 360, and I have another JTAG 360 now, but I've never owned, like a vanilla 360.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was just a PlayStation, guy, and I'd had PlayStation 1 and then 2, which obviously we'll hear about, but I think I was just kind of a Sony. I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I think I was probably the same as well. I to be honest with you, I wanted to get on the 360 route, but we ended up going to the PlayStation 3. And even though I've got a 360 since then and do enjoy it, I agree with you. I thought the PlayStation 3 was brilliant, and I won't have a bad word said about it.
It's funny because, arguably the Fallout games on the PS3 are probably the worst platform to play it on. Especially in New Vegas, like some of the downloadable content is literally unplayable. Like the slowdown is like 1 frame per second, so you literally can't play it. Like yeah. So when I say I'm picking Fallout New Vegas, if I was on a desert island, someone gave me a PC or a 360 play on, I'm not going to throw it back in their face. I'm going, I just want to play the game. I don't care what it's on.
So why this particular one? Because I have a Fallout fan in the house, not myself, and she very much enjoyed Fallout 3. Put a lot of time into it. So obviously, naturally, once Fallout New Vegas came out, I thought, oh, I'll get you that. And she didn't like it at all.
Wow.
And she much preferred playing Fallout 3. She's played Fallout 4 since, and she enjoyed playing that as well. But New Vegas, she just couldn't get on with in the slightest. So I'm interested to hear your sort of reasoning for including it on this list.
Well, it was a tough decision, and any one of those 3 games, Fallout 3 New Vegas or Fallout 4, I'd be more than happy with on a desert island, because I could get hundreds and hundreds of hours out of any of them.
That's right.
But I loved Fallout 3 as well, and without getting into a whole thing, a lot of the things that people say Fallout 3 fails at, I think it doesn't. Like, Fallout New Vegas was developed by Obsidian, whereas Bethesda developed Fallout 3. So they're very different, and they have a different, a lot of different mechanics, like very different game. I do like the fact you get a perk every level in Fallout 3, and you only get one every other level in Fallout New Vegas. That was kind of annoyed me because I like getting rewarded. Like, you know, if you level up, you want to get rewarded, you know.
Yeah.
Nice little perk.
That's it.
But everyone says, oh, Fallout New Vegas, you know, it's got lots of different ways to approach the missions, and it's got lots of different ways to do this, that, and the other, and, you know, and like Fallout 3 has loads of that as well. Like, I don't agree with the people who say Fallout 3 doesn't have that, but New Vegas certainly has it in spades. It has it a lot more. And my thinking was, again, with the logic of being on a desert island, if I'm going to play, you know, generally I'll play like 100 to 200 hours of Fallout, and then I'll get bored, and then I need to start another save, and I'll create a new fictional backstory to my character, you know. And that's kind of fun to do because, you know, they are role-playing games, and if you have this kind of idea of what your character's about and what they would and wouldn't do and what they specialize in, you can kind of make it more interesting every time. And or you just make up rule sets like, oh, I'll restrict myself to not using certain things or certain weapons, and, you know, stuff like that. But New Vegas, it's got this like really intricate kind of system. Firstly, like the factions, like how people react to you and how people treat you is really complicated. So you have rather than like it being a scale of 1 to 10, and if you're 10, the people love you, and if you're at 1, they hate you, so they'll just shoot you if they see you. It's not like that. So in Fallout New Vegas, you have 2 scales, and 1 is how much they like you, and 1 is how much they dislike you. So like 1 is like how much good stuff have you done for these people, and the other one is how much have you fucked them over. So that creates this really like interesting kind of equilibrium of that balance, where you could have done a load of nice stuff for them, but you could have like killed some guy's wife as well. So they're like, oh, well, he's kind of cool, but he killed my wife. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's really complicated how people react to you, and how people like view your character depending on what stuff you've done.
It's that classification. He's kind of cool, but he killed my wife. You know?
Exactly.
Is he still slightly cool?
Yeah, we've all been there. You know? But yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing, like. So like, yeah, you've got these like different levels of it will show like what the faction's opinion of you are, and it's not just like, oh, they regard you highly or they regard you poorly. They might be like, oh, you're like you know, a mischievous good person or whatever, like he's up to some stuff but he's all right or whatever, you know. It'll have, that's not one of the descriptions, I can't remember what they call them, but they're like really weird descriptions of how they regard you. And anyway, you've also got this stuff where you'll have like a mission or a quest line, so you know you've got X amount of things you have to do, but there's like 6 different ways you can do it, and New Vegas isn't going to tell you how to do any of them apart from maybe one of them. So like it will say, go here and do this and this and this and this. But if you happen to have spoken to this person, you will know that you can bypass so-and-so by doing this. Or if you happen to have looked at this computer terminal or this scrap of paper in some random building, you know that so-and-so was having an affair and you can blackmail them into doing this for you. And, you know, there's just like so many different ways to do the stuff. And I just think that's why I picked New Vegas, because like it's got the potential to have several playthroughs with very different outcomes, whereas as much as I love Fallout 3, I think that that is it's not the case as much. But what Fallout 3 really does is creates that sense of isolation, which Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 don't do. Certainly not Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is really populous.
Yes. Yeah, from what I've seen of it, it is, yes.
Yeah. Whereas Fallout 3, you can walk and walk and walk, and you're just in the middle of nowhere, and it's, you know, it's a scary, like, isolated place. And that's kind of Fallout for me, and that was my introduction to Fallout, was just this feeling of loneliness and it was great. Absolutely loved it. But yeah, New Vegas is cool. It's got fun characters and quite a fun story, and there are sort of several factions you can side with to do different things, including like the main final quest and everything. And it's just that freedom, really, like to play it how you want.
And then you say you can go different paths, and if you said you go somewhere first and do it, then there's a different outcome from it. So you can always do it differently. If you say on a desert island, you go back and do it differently the second time around, and then back again and do it differently another way, and that's the whole purpose of it, really. No, I think you sold that really well. Again, for anybody who hasn't played that one, again, it's not the sort of game I'd sit down and play, but I quite like the idea of being slightly cool for killing somebody's wife. That seems quite, I don't know, slightly different.
It's quite, it's quite dark, actually. Some of it is really dark. That there's this one mission where you have. No, I'm not going to say that. It's too dark for this. But there's like really there's some really like adult themes and like quite horrific stuff in the as it's a post-apocalyptic world. You
have to expect that.
Yeah.
There will be some things like that going on. Yeah. No, that's good. Again, I know there are fans of Fallout who watch my channel as well. They'll be, I dare say, agreeing with you about that. I'd have to now interrogate Mrs. Bear to find out why she didn't like it so much.
Yeah.
Just listen to what Pete said. Pete says this brilliant. What did you like about it? I'll have to get her on here one of these days, and you can do it. And that's going to explain why she enjoys Fallout 3 more.
Yeah, do it.
Let's drop. No, let's do one more. Let's do one more from your gaming.
One more game, okay.
Yeah, and then we'll drop back to gaming history.
Oh, what are we going to do? Let's do one that I'm sure is no surprise to anyone. GoldenEye, Nintendo 64.
Yeah. We said earlier there can't be many people who haven't heard of this particular game.
No.
And you would have played it in one iteration or another, whether it's with a load of mates gathered around an N64 and 4 controllers, or whether, like me, you enjoy playing the single-player mode and going through the campaign.
Same.
Yeah.
I love multiplayer, but single-player campaign is like, oh.
Yeah. When I first played it, I used to hate playing just the multiplayer with everybody. Probably because I wasn't very good at it. But that didn't help. So I like, it's a Bond license. It is meant to be the best Bond game ever up until that point. Maybe still is, although I know it doesn't age particularly well. But I always looked and said, well, there's a single player to the side of this, and friends of mine would sort of start playing it, and you'd sort of go, well, actually, I like the look at this. I'd like to go myself. And it wasn't until years later when I first got an N64, the first cartridge I bought for it was GoldenEye. And it was like, now I'm happy. And it's one of the very few games I think I've ever sat down in the last 10 years and played and played and played. So I've played nothing else just to get through it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
People, I'm sure, like everybody's already writing in the comments, oh my god, it's picked GoldenEye, it's aged terribly. Everyone says, oh, it's aged terribly. I mean, I love it, man. Like when I was doing that documentary earlier this year, I played GoldenEye for months. Like, and I play it on that little I've got a little little small monitor, like 9-10 inch, and it looks great on that. Funny.
Yeah.
But I just play it, like the single player is still amazing. I love it. So when I said that was being one of my desert island games, it's because I can sit there and play it, like you said. And it's still really tough, even though I've played literally thousands of hours of that game. That's might be the game I've played the most in my life. Is GoldenEye. Because when we were teenagers, we'd just play multiplayer. I was really good at it. Still pretty good at it. I remember once, when would my sister have been at university? Like 18 years ago, roughly. And I went to see her at university, and the guy had a N64, and I hadn't played GoldenEye for a couple of years at that point, I think. And he goes, "Oh yeah, you want to play GoldenEye? Like, I'm really good. No one ever beats me." He's given it all the big one and everything. And we played a game, and I beat him 20-0. And then he just went to his room and slammed the door and sulked in there for the rest of the night.
We've all had experiences like that where we play a game, but yeah, for a complete stranger coming in, fancy playing GoldenEye? It is an easy one. I'll knock him over quickly, and then you sort of turn the tables on them. It's something else, isn't it?
I find it strange that people give it the big one. It's better to just be humble, just in case, and then if you win, it's a bonus.
That's you can sort of hammer it home when you win, rather than sort of say, "Oh yeah, I'm good at GoldenEye. I'm the best ever." Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see about that, shall we? Didn't know he was up against. So
no, I mean, there's always a bigger fish, isn't there? That's the risk.
That's right. Yeah, they just haven't come across them. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, really tough. There's still even though I've played it for so much, when I play things like what's it called, Aztec, the Aztec level, that's tough, man. Really tough.
Yes, it is. Yeah. I actually found a magazine I picked up at a car boot years ago, which had a complete player's guide to GoldenEye. Because I got stuck a couple of times. I thought, how did I ever get through here? I just couldn't work it out, and I was just going through some old magazines. I thought, where did this come from? So I sort of, rather than go on YouTube, which would be the more modern thing to do, I had this old magazine, so I sort of went through that, and it pointed me in the right direction.
Was it helpful?
A little bit, yeah, it was. Because there were some bits I was completely stuck on. It's like, what the hell do I do? I can't remember. It's been ages since I played it, but
oh, I see. Right. Yeah. So rather than like a strategy for like the enemies, it was like where to actually bloody go, because it doesn't tell you.
He just sort of said, when you're at this point here, you use this. It's like, oh, I've been using the wrong thing, and then it all makes sense. I think that there was a bit where you had to, was it on a train or a compartment? You had to laser off the bottom to locks to drop
the floor,
out. Yeah, and I was struggling. I just couldn't work out. It was either just before that or just around about or after that. There was something I just got completely stuck on, and I couldn't work it out.
Yeah, well, when I interviewed David Doak, actually, he was talking about that, and he said that it's just typical 90s game design. We just didn't tell anyone what to do, and it was so true. Like, thinking back, like, you've got objectives like install covert modem, and that's the first level, is on the dam. And all it says is you've got an objective, install covert modem. Now, eventually, if you work out that you have a covert modem in your inventory, which you may not know, when you see it, it does not then tell you where to put it. It could be literally anywhere. And there's just some random little computer screen tucked away. But then you have to throw it exactly on the screen. If you miss it even slightly, then you've failed.
Yeah,
so it's just literally trial and error of just working that stuff out, and there's loads of that in the game. But stuff like Aztec is just like, the first bit of Aztec is you come out of you're in a little, like, very small narrow corridor, and you come out and there's two enemies on one side and one enemy on the other side. The Moonraker guards in the yellow jumpsuits.
Yes,
and that is luck. Right,
I was trying to remember it. It's been so ages since I played it.
It is 100% luck, because the way that AI is programmed is it's a lottery to what they'll do, right? So it's not fixed to what they'll do. So even if you're the master player, you'll never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's totally luck. Obviously a bit of skill, but it's luck at what they're going to do and when they're going to fire and where they're going to fire and blah, 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 to whether you will take damage on that first bit. So generally when I play Aztec, I will restart that first few seconds like 10 or 20 times until I'm happy I've taken no damage. But then the next room's a dog, because you open up like a stone hidden wall thing, and there's snipers and this, and the thing with the AI is sometimes they'll just randomly decide, I'm going to chuck a grenade, and it's like, oh, thanks, and then everybody in the whole room blows up, and it's just a mess.
Do you think that's clever programming? so that you're never quite sure. You said about that level, what you're going to get when you first encounter those two guards. Are you going to get blown to pieces, take lots of damage, or are you going to be complete luck that you're going to take very little damage and enable yourself to get through?
Well, I think it's great. I think it really aids to the game design that it's random. So, like, I think, you know, there's like in certain situations there's like a dice roll, and they have X amount of animations that they can enter into, and it just picks one, which is why you sometimes get that funny thing where you've got a guard or something, and they will just hop to the side. Do you know that animation? They just hop to the side for no reason, and that's just because the dice roll has gone, I'm going to hop to the side, you know, so it just ends up looking hilarious. Or like that one where if someone enters into an animation like a roll, and the roll is really slow, if you shoot them and they die, they continue doing the roll because the AI has gone, I'm going to execute the roll, so it doesn't execute the death until the roll is finished. So they'll do a lovely roll and finish, and then they'll go and die. You know, it's hilarious.
I mean, when you start the game and you go into the toilets and you think, oh, it's like these toilet doors. There's a guard in there. You know, you wouldn't expect something like that. But when you mean about the objectives, I used to have the same problem with the Medal of Honor. And you go to the objective list, you go, oh, hang on, what you games of that ilk where you think, what have I missed? Well, where the hell am I to find that? Where's that going to be? They don't give you any pointers. They don't give you any, ideas or clues or hints. You've got to find it yourself. But that's part of the appeal and the fun of it. You don't want to be sort of mollycoddled and led through it. You want to be able to test your own skills by finding out where all this stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, you're James Bond, you know. You're not like, Johnny English. You're supposed to be
Clouseau. Yeah.
Clouseau, yeah. You're supposed to be, the super spy. You don't need a little, a handhold saying, "Oh, you must put your covert modem exactly here, Mr. Bond," and all this.
Because I'm trying to think. Do you ever play The World Is Not Enough?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I think that John Cleese was doing his stint as Q in the films at that time. I think he did 2 or 3, didn't he? And I'm pretty sure during that he sort of giving you hints and tips and pointers as you're going through.
Right.
Not all the way through, but I played the game briefly. I love the game. I first played it on emulation. I thought, this is really good. This is. And then I was looking for a copy the other day, and I realised I've actually got a copy of it on the PlayStation 1. So it's a good job I didn't buy it again. But I'm pretty sure there's a various sort of stages. He sort of talks you through things that you've got or in your inventory, or you need to go and find this. Just as a little bit of a guide, more helpful than what you get in GoldenEye, which is basically nothing.
Yeah, and it still like makes sense in universe for Q to be giving you hints because he's the one who makes all the gadgets and all that, you know.
Absolutely. Is it the best? Have you played many of the other James Bond games? Is it the best one you've played? If you have,
I played Nightfire a lot on PS2, which I think is an excellent game.
I do like all the original ones. There was that one, and the one I can never remember. What's it called?
Agent Under Fire.
That's the one. Or Something or Nothing as well, isn't it? So I can hang on. There's Everything or Nothing. Yes, that's it. Those 3 original titles for the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. All brilliant.
Yeah, they're cool. I like it when they're just kind of, given the sort of carte blanche with the Bond rather than focusing on one film. And GoldenEye was a weird one because it was kind of half and half. Like they had the license for the whole of Bond, with a couple of exceptions. Like they couldn't show the American CIA guy for some reason, and they couldn't show like Sean Connery and the other guys. But they, as far as like the source material went from like all the, that's why you've got like you've got Moonraker level in Aztec, and you've got the Egyptian level from Live and Let Die, isn't it, with Baron Samedi?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the multiplayer, you've got like Odd Job in there and all the random characters because they just had the Bond license. But it's weird because GoldenEye is a game based on one film, but then they also had whatever they wanted from the Bond. So I think it does kind of make those games interesting. And Nightfire was great. Like the multiplayer was super fun. And I don't know if you remember the multiplayer, but you had that like the homing missiles where you fired the missile, you would then control the missile remotely.
Okay, I don't think I ever played multiplayer on that one.
Oh man, we used to play that to death. It must have come out around the time I first moved out. Like I moved out of my parents' house in 2000, and just a lot of smoking and playing games all night. It was kind of a trade-off with that homing missile because it was really accurate and cool. That because you're guiding it, and it like. When you fire the missile, the camera goes to the sort of in-missile camera, as if you're guiding a drone. So you can fly it through buildings and through windows, and you can proper chase down people.
Wow.
Even if they run through a building, you can go, no, I'm going to steer my missile through there, and, you can proper do people. But it leaves you exposed because you are controlling the drone with your camera. So your guy is just standing there like a twat, with someone who come up behind him and pop him, double tap him in the back of the head,
Yeah. Oh, wow. That sounds great. I missed that one. The other one I quite like from that era is from Russia with Love.
Oh, I never played that one.
Have you not? Honestly, that one doesn't get an awful lot of love, but SNES Tastic's a massive fan of that. And we were talking about it when I talked to him, and I know a few people do like that because they got Sean Connery back to do all the voices. It's one of the last things he did, one of the very sort of last assignments he did before he quit acting altogether. So he takes a few liberties with the film, but he redid all the voicing and everything for it. So it's really, really good. It's dirt cheap to pick up. If you get a chance to pick a copy up, it's worth doing that one.
So is that first person?
Not. No, it's more behind the character,
like third person. Yeah. I thought it was. I seem to remember it. Well, I'm sure I've seen one of Pete's videos where he talks about it, and I thought it was third person.
Yeah, he does love that game. So I like it. Did you ever play the remake of GoldenEye? Just out of interest.
Well, remake, quote unquote. What on the Wii one?
The Wii or the Wii and the Play. It came out on the Wii originally, and then it came out on the PlayStation 3. Was it GoldenEye Reloaded, wasn't it? I think.
Oh yeah, I did play that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's not really a remake. It's just another Bond game called GoldenEye. It's nothing to do with the original.
I must admit, I was disappointed with the Wii one because I thought, oh, well, I got this, and it's like it's a bit underwhelmed. It's good, but I think had the original GoldenEye not existed, it'd probably been really good. But it's just that name attached to it. You associate that name with the old game.
Yeah, I mean, people forget how groundbreaking GoldenEye was. People don't give it enough credit. Console first-person shooters didn't exist back then.
That's right. They didn't. Which is amazing now because the market's flooded with them.
Well, yeah, and that was really the kind of birth of that phenomenon, I think. And obviously, Half-Life followed up the following year. But yeah, I mean, first-person shooters were like Doom clones, really, weren't they? They were all like, Doom, Dark Forces, Hexen, and Heretic, Rise of the Triad, Duke Nukem, stuff like that, which are all great, but it's a world apart from, doing all the LAN gaming and everything is a lot of hassle. It's not the same as just plugging 4 controllers into your Nintendo 64, sitting on the sofa with your mates, and that's why it blew up so much because we'd sit there and play that for hours all day long. You could play multiplayer GoldenEye and have fun.
That's it. Yeah, we like you used to use mass. We wouldn't even go out sometimes. We'd just pile around someone's house, and we usually the same house a friend of mine used to have up the road used to rent, and 10, 12 was to sort of pile around and play GoldenEye.
Yeah, We just drink. We just drink
yeah.
and drink and just play GoldenEye. You know,
Drink, eat, smoke, yeah, all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. Those
Yeah.
are the days.
Mm. Mm.
And it's great because all the guys will pile into the lounge, all the girls will clear off and do something else. And a few of them will occasionally break off and go and play FIFA on another N64, possibly. So he had two in the house, one in the lounge, and there was one guy who's renting a room had one upstairs. So it was either GoldenEye in the lounge or FIFA upstairs. Mad. Okay, so that's half your games that are on your you've taken the favourite sort of side of that, or the games that you're going to give you more enjoyment on the desert island. Let's pop back to your gaming history, because we sort of got to the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, so I mean, we didn't really get to the stuff I had. So, you know, like I said, grew up kind of looking at playing other people's things, and then I'm not quite sure. So I'm going to mention three systems, but I'm not quite sure the order that these happened in, or when. Although
I'm not going to keep you to exact dates, so you're all right.
I know. Although one of them, which is the Amiga 500, this particular pack that I got was out between, I think it was September 1990 and something like April 91.
Yeah, I think I know the one you're going to say.
And it's the Screen Gems pack. And my dad just came home one day with it. No warning, no birthday, nothing. He just come home with an Amiga 500.
Yeah.
And you know, the idea was this is a computer for him to work on, and yeah, I can play some games on it. And I don't remember ever seeing him use it even once. Which is, you know,
I can relate to that as well.
Yeah, not going to complain. So I come home with the Screen Gems pack, and that was called Screen Gems because it was all movie themed. So it had Back to the Future 2, Nightbreed,
yeah,
and it was Nightbreed, like not the action game, it was like the adventure game or whatever or the interactive game.
Yeah, that was the other one, yeah.
Which is like, it's like just as weird as the film. If you've ever seen Nightbreed, it's like hella weird.
I've never seen the film, but I did play the Commodore 64. I think I played the action game a few weeks back, and that was a strange experience.
Is it Clive Barker who
yes.
did Nightbreed? Yeah,
that's right.
And what else did it have? Oh, it had Days of Thunder.
Yeah,
which is shite.
it was shit of the highest order.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah,
I tell you what, I played the NES version the other day, and that's equally as bad.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Before you carry on, that pack there? The year before, I got the Batman pack, which was Batman, the movie, New Zealand story, F-18 Interceptor. Same premise as your dad sort of coming in saying, "I've bought this," although I think it was constant years of badgering my dad about having a computer that they just sort of gave in. Yeah. They had all the educational software that come with it, which went in the drawer and stayed there and never came out again. My dad never used the Amiga other to play Gettysburg on, which was sort of American Civil War game that he picked up, and a couple of others as well. Otherwise, it was me on there all the time playing all these games. And then the year the Screen Gems packs came out, after Christmas, we went back to school. I'm not joking. There must have been about 10 people had Amigas for Christmas, and they all had that particular pack.
Oh, wow.
And I always think back and think, of all the packs they brought out, because I think the next one there was a Cartoon Classics after that.
Yeah.
And that had Bart versus Space Mutants,
Captain Planet,
and Lemmings. I think it was Lemmings. I think it was part of that as well.
I think so.
Yeah, much better pack. Okay, Captain Planet maybe not, but The Simpsons is it's one of those games. I think it's too bad. But I always thought that pack in the middle of the Screen Gems pack was a bit of a duff one because of the quality of the games in there. Because even Back to the Future 2 wasn't all that good. Nightbreed, I don't even remember Nightbreed being a massively big talked about film in terms of blockbusters at the time.
Well, not at all, and certainly not for kids.
No, definitely not. And of course, Days of Thunder, which, as we know, shit film, shit game.
I think it had deluxe paint in there, and
Deluxe paint was everywhere. Yes.
Yeah, but the one game it had, which was the Anomaly, which didn't fit the Screen Gems theme, was Shadow of the Beast 2. Now, terrible game, but like, wow, what a sight to behold. So, like, you can imagine, I just got an Amiga. I'd played, like, Speckies and all that, Commodore. I played NES. I put in Shadow of the Beast 2, that intro music, and then there's the hut and the woman with the baby crying, and then this wizard, and the wizard changes into this huge winged beast, and it comes down, and it rips open the roof, and it steals the baby, and then like the music and everything, and I'm like, what is this? Like, how can the computer do this?
Yeah.
And
then you play it.
You play it, and it's shit. But you still play it. Like when you're a kid and you've got like a few games that are all crap, you still play them because you're like, well, I've got an Amiga. But yeah, that was like, it still gives me chills watching that intro or hearing that music. And that obviously led me into the original Shadow of the Beast, which again isn't a great game, but the music is like absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's why they kind of shoved Shadow of the Beast 2 in that pack, was because they were like, look what this Amiga can do.
Yeah, it was exactly that reason. It's sort of like, all the other games you've got are terrible, but look at this one. This is what it can do. And it's the same sort of reason when a friend of mine got a copy of Xenon 2. He just put it and said, listen to this. It's like, it's like, it's sample speech in it, and the music plays in the game, and it's like, wow. And then you play the game, and it's crap, mostly. So it's but again, it's like listen to what the Amiga can do. Shadow of the Beast too. Look at what the Amiga can do. It's like, yeah, I agree with that.
And that was like the first game that ever had a like popular artist do the title track, Bomb the Bass.
Bomb the Bass.
And I have very few memories of like when I got games and whether I had copies or whether I had originals, because generally, if I was buying games, I'd go to the local. We had a place called the Soft Shop up the road, and I was buying like the really budget, really cheap games with my pocket money. I wasn't buying like the big budget games. I was copying those, and we'd copy them on the playground, and I had like a huge library of games that were copied. But I do remember getting Xenon 2. That's one of the few I remember. And when we were kids, my sister and I would go into my parents' bedroom in the morning, and we'd have a stocking that we'd open, and then we'd go downstairs and we'd get like a main present. But we'd get like little knickknacks in a stocking, and we kind of open it so my parents could stay in bed for a bit longer. And the Amiga was in their room, so at the end of the bed they had a desk. It's still there actually, a desk with, now my dad uses it to work and has a PC there, but it used to be the Amiga. And I got Xenon 2, and it must have been a budget re-release, but like by that time it was a few quid. But I do remember loading it up, and the title screen, the music and everything else just utterly blew me away. Absolutely amazing.
You live, you remember. So we talked about memories. That's those sort of memories. You remember that straight away, and it's a shame he's such a ponderous shooter. He hasn't held up very well, and when people say that to me, I go, "Oh, it's all right. Music's good, but..." And even then, when you're playing the game, the music sort of drops in. The drum beat drops when you have to press fire. So it drops in and out. But yeah, technically brilliant. I mean, I love my Amiga, full stop. I mean, it was one of my biggest regrets ever getting rid of that. But I got one back a few years ago, and it's just that was the first computer we had. I forget the Atari. That was a console. This was the first computer I ever had, and so many happy memories of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is and forever will be my favorite gaming system of all time, and that's probably because it may have been the first thing that we got in my house, I think, because that small window of sort of 6 months, 1990 to 91, I turned 10 in the December of 1990, so I was either 9 or 10 when I got it. So it definitely would have been the first. It must have predated everything else. First thing we got in our house. So, it's really special to me. And if you want to hear a horror story about what happened to my Amiga, oh my God.
Yeah. Go on.
So
I can
like,
tell you what happened to mine as well.
I actually like I can't get over this, and it's something I think about a lot that I just need to get over it, but I can't. Like some miracle is going to happen, and all my original discs are just going to turn up. You know, like it was all a joke or a mistake. That I had an Amiga, and I obviously had this absolutely massive library of games, some original, some copied, huge amount of demo discs, which some of the demos I played to death.
Yes,
and it was under my bed at one point, so like it was just stashed under my bed because we'd moved on to other stuff. We had a PC by then, and I was heavily into playing the PC games like Doom and the other stuff. The Star Wars games and all that. So it was kind of like relegated to under the bed. And I must have still had a Mega Drive at the time. And anyway, my mate at school said, "Oh, do you want to do a little bit of a swap for a bit for my SNES?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So he gives me a SNES and like 10 games, and I give him my Amiga and that. And when it came to swap them back, he goes, "Oh no, like we threw that in the skip or whatever." And I'm like,
"No."
I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, no, I thought it was a permanent swap." And when I got bored with it, I just took it down the dump.
Oh,
and I'm like, "What the fuck, man?" So like that was just horrific. Like that's so much worse than it being sold or anything. The fact that it's just gone in a landfill or whatever, and they're all my original discs and my original Amiga, and that just pains me so much that happened.
That's gutting. Mine also ended up in the skip, but that was entirely my own doing. And I regret this because this is after I moved out. I moved out from home in about 2002, I think it was. And a few years later, about 3 years later, my dad said, "Oh, still got that Amiga." He says, "Do you want that?" And by that point in time, I was actually out of gaming by then. I was a little bit playing Medal of Honor on the PC, but in terms of consoles, etc., I'd got an Xbox, but I had that sort of 18 months previously, and I sort of fallen out of love with gaming. And I said, "Oh no!" I said, "No one will want that. Throw it away." Throw it away with all my discs. I had because I used to. I'm probably the only person, from what I understand, used to buy Amiga games. Everybody else got theirs copied, but I used to buy quite a lot. So all my games went, all my demo discs, like you said, the demos just played to death. All my copies are gone, and I consigned that to the landfill myself.
Oh no!
I know. So
my dad said to me recently, actually, because I was chatting. I think I must have been chatting something about Amiga with him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, when I die, you'll find all that stuff in the loft." And I go, "Well, no." And I told him the horrific story of it. But what that did tell me was all the boxes and everything will be in the loft.
Oh, okay.
So that'll be really interesting because, like I said, I can't remember what I bought and what I didn't. So all the original boxes of that stuff I actually bought will be in the loft, and presumably my Screen Gems box will be up there.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see what there was. I can't even remember half the stuff that I had, which is even worse. There was so many games. I used to have a big drawer full, and sort of like 3 or 4 disc boxes. And little, and sort of like the ones that hold 10, and the big ones that would hold loads. I just think about it, but and I can say this because this is going to go out after the video I'm going to put up tomorrow. So if anybody wants to watch my pickups of the 17th of July Part 2, I've just this weekend picked up probably something in the region about 150 copied Amiga games.
Wow!
Now I know they're only copied, but I'm cool with that. And I just swapped a load of my retro gamer back issues with a guy who lives close by to me. He took all those off my hands, and I took about 5 or 6 giant boxes of discs. I spent about 3 hours on Sunday just gone, spread them out across the floor in the lounge, and just trying to match them. Obviously with me games, you've got like 3 or 4 discs, haven't you? And they were all spread across these boxes. So like that's number 2 of 4 over there for Street Fighter 2. And you find it, there's another one, and you got completing all the games. So working all that. So yeah, there's a load of games, and there's also some 1200 games in there as well, which is great because I've got a 1200.
Nice.
So I was really chuffed to get that, and there was a local shop to me, which was selling a big box as well. He just had come in, and these discs, they're absolutely immaculate. They don't look like they've aged at all. The writing on the front is still clear from where the guy's written in block capitals what the game is, what number disc it is, 500, 1200. They look absolutely immaculate. And he was selling that for about a tenner. And I thought, I'll have that just for a tenner. The box itself is probably worth about £5 to £10 anyway.
Yeah.
Big case, and it's got the key on the front as well. So yeah, loads of Amiga games recently. I've built a little bit of a collection back up, but I'm still trying to work out which games I haven't got, and going through all those games. It was like, I remember that one, and that one. I've now got Street Fighter 2. I've never had that before on the Amiga. I know it's terrible, but meant to be terrible, but I've now got it, so I can try it myself.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't mind that.
Yeah, I kind of like just stick. So I've got the 1200 with the SD card in it, and I just play them that way. But I do buy big box Amiga games, but just the ones I had as a kid, the ones that mean something. Because like we were saying earlier, I just that era of the big boxes and all the gubbins and everything is just something I really miss. And going to the shop and just buying something based on what was on the box.
Yeah,
you didn't know anything else. And sometimes you got a shocker, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, when I used to get budget games on the Amiga to start with, I bought some right tut. Honestly, again, you just based on the fact that it was a cheap game which you could afford with pocket money or whatever, because there wasn't a budget range when the Amiga first started. It was the full price games, and that was it. There's nothing like that. So it's nice to see games like Treasure Island Dizzy come out on it, and you could spend £5 on that, and you wouldn't have thought you wasted your money. So it was good, but sometimes you just had no idea what you're buying. Like, oh, is that any good or not? I don't know.
I mean, a lot of it for me was like, let's be realistic. How often can you buy games? It was all about the magazines, and I'd go into John Menzies, and I'd look at all the Amiga magazines, and you had the one Amiga, you had Amiga Format, you had Amiga Power. There were loads of them, and you just look at what's on the discs, and normally there are 2 discs, and you're like, right, I'm going to buy the magazine that's got the best demo, and you go home and you get so much, you get so much gameplay out of those demos. You
would. I had loads of them. I'd probably buy maybe 2 Amiga magazines a month, I think, just to get the discs off it. And there's the one I played, which I'd never picked up, and I wish I had now, was Venus the Flytrap. And that's quite an expensive game to pick up now. I think you're looking close to £100 for a copy of that. I'm pretty sure Big Mike's got his collection. Without further ado, retro, and it's not a cheap game. And I remember I thought it's different. It's a completely different game. I like the idea of that, and I should have bought it at the time. He'd gone down to skip anyway, so that's probably would have wasted time.
Yeah,
to say whatever they'd do with everything else.
Would have been more pain looking back.
Yes, on it. Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I've got all the painful memories in my collection apart from that one, but that's it. I mean, the whole point of the demos was just to try games and see what was there, and I'm fascinated by stuff like that. It really was brilliant. You don't get that now. Get that now.
So Amiga, and then at some point we got a Mega Drive. So my like I said, my birthday's in December, so I'd always put my my birthday and Christmas money together, and I got a Mega Drive.
Yeah,
Mega Drive is like my favorite console, whereas Amiga is my favorite overall. So but it's that era that I remember most fondly. And then at some point, one birthday or Christmas, I got a Game Boy. So at one point, I must have had a Game Boy, a Mega Drive, and an Amiga. And how lucky, very fortunate, because they're like 3 of the greatest.
They are.
Yeah, they're just unreal. So Mega Drive, I had a Mega Drive, and my mate down the road, who actually was the guy I mentioned earlier who had the BBC, he had a Mega Drive. So a lot of the games we'd buy different games so that we could together play, rather than both of us have a copy of some game, we'd buy different stuff. I mean, like, what did I play back in the day? Strider, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, like Italian 90, stuff like that. Loved Megalomania. That was great.
Oh yes, I remember that one.
Brilliant game, that. So that's Sensible Software.
Yes, another one. Yes. It was on the Amiga as well, wasn't it?
It was on Amiga, yeah.
You started life there,
I think I had it on Amiga as well. Like quite a few games I'd have on both. Like Golden Axe I had on both, in fact.
I used to love Golden Axe on the Amiga. I set that playthrough all the time.
Yeah, thought it was great.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah. And yeah, Streets of Rage was a big one, and Toe Jam and Earl was a big one. We used to play that constantly. Toe Jam and Earl, loved that. He also had Landstalker, Treasure of King Noel, which is like, if anyone hasn't played it, is like an isometric adventure game, which I loved as well. It was like a really grand in scope for the time, and I thought, wow, this is quite impressive. Trying to remember what else I had back in the day. If I looked at Micro Machines and the Sonics, obviously.
Yes,
you know, great. But yeah, I'm sure if I looked at the shelf, I'd be reminded of more games I had as a kid. But Echo the Dolphin stuff, he had that one. I never really gelled with me. I never really got that.
It's a strange game. I can see possibly what they were trying to do, but I don't know. It doesn't appeal to gamers, I suppose, really, to be having an ecological theme to a game.
Bit arty, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Game Boy, I can remember pretty much every single game I owned, and I own them all now. All the games on my shelf are the childhood games.
Wow, that's impressive.
So let's think. What did I have? I think when I got it, I had Tetris built into the in the pack.
Yeah.
And I got Super Mario 1, and eventually got Super Mario 2. I had Mortal Kombat, which is pretty shocking in the Game Boy, but I actually really liked it. I don't know why. I mean, you got to like stuff. When you buy a game back then, you got to like it, mate, because you've got to wait. Like you get like 2 games a year, maybe.
That's it. Yeah, you've got to make the most of what you're getting, because you ain't getting another one.
I had Radar Mission, which was battleships.
Not heard of that. Oh, battleships.
It's battleships, which I liked. And it must have been, I guess, in Christmas '93 or my birthday '93, I got Link's Awakening.
Okay.
I think that's all the Game Boy games I owned.
My parents bought my sister a Game Boy for one Christmas one year, which really, really annoyed me, because my sister had no interest in gaming whatsoever. And it came with Tetris like yours did. I think they bought a Donkey Kong as well. And I have absolutely no idea what happened to that Game Boy. I cannot, for love or money, work out what happened to it. But she sure as hell thought I didn't play it. She's got no interest in it whatsoever. And I remember years before my mum died, I said, "Well, whatever happened to my sister's Game Boy?" And she said, "Well, ask her." And she said, "I don't know." And no one seems to know where it's gone to, or it disappeared. And I'm now back living in the family house, and it's still not here. So I've got absolutely no idea what she's done with it. She lives in New Zealand now. She said didn't take it with her.
Wow. But
she had no interest in gaming at all.
Oh,
and they bought her a Game Boy. Yeah. And I'm the one in the family who plays the games, and my other family members play games. That's all. It's me, and that's it. Why you bought her a Game Boy? That's not fair.
It's really difficult to explain to young people the significance and the impact of the Game Boy, because they look at the Game Boy now, and they're like, there's been a load of handhelds since, progressively better. You've got the Switch now. They can play games on their phone. They've got tablets, this, that, and the other. Yeah. When we were kids, like I said earlier, with my history growing up with the LCD games, you bought an LCD game and it was one game. And you were stuck with that one game. And then as LCD technology got cheaper and they managed to, cost effectively release the Game Boy, and the Game Boy was affordable. It was like 90 quid,
Yeah.
Reasonably affordable. But you could change the games. And just that one sentence was utterly mind-blowing.
Yeah.
and it's impossible to kind of convey that now. That just that you could go, I'm playing Mario, and actually I'll play Tetris. That's mental.
And just swap it out. Yeah.
Yeah, it was unreal. And I'm sure we got all the memories of you're on the drive to your grand's house and you're sitting in the black playing Game Boy, and you could take the games with you and stuff, and it was it was great. It was a really great little system, and it's one of those leaps in technology that you're probably never going to see again these days.
I remember, because this would have come out when we were at school, and obviously there were the rumours at the time that Sega were bringing out a colour one, and Atari were bringing out a colour one, and everybody at school said, "Oh, you don't want to get a game, but it's in black and white," and that was very much the attitude. So we took a different approach to it, and very, very few people I knew had Game Boys. In fact, a friend of mine, his sister had a Game Gear. And sister's obviously seemed to be getting the great gifts. She had the limited edition Coca-Cola one,
Wow.
and he's still got that somewhere. He's sitting on an absolute gold one. He's still got all his consoles from when he was a kid in the boxes.
Jeez.
And one of these days, I'm going to get them off him, maybe, or convince me to leave him in his will when he's dead. It's an absolute treasure trove. But we weren't all that interested in the Game Boy. I have to be honest.
Wow.
We all thought we were sort of waiting for the Game Gear, and then when the Game, you can watch telly on the Game Gear as well. You're going to buy this giant piece of plastic to stick in the top of it, but you can watch telly on it. Who wants to sit there and play black and white games on a tiny little screen? So it's only years later, as you said, to understand the impact the Game Boy had at the time. When I started picking up the odd loose Game Boys at car boots, Game Boy nuts, the big grey one, Game Boy Colors, Game Boy Pockets, Game Boy Advance, that I understood. Yeah, I knew it was a very powerful thing, and it was incredibly successful. But when it's quite right as you said, I could go away for a weekend and go camping or whatever, and I could take the Game Boy Advance with me, and I can put everything into that, and I'll just take a big sack of games with me and just sort of sit there and keep swapping them in and out. It's amazing.
Yeah, I did subsequently get a Game Gear as a kid, because like you said, when it came out in like all color, but it was never as good as the Game Boy for me. I liked it, but it wasn't as good. Like, it's color, but it's like really washed out and like faint screen. It's not got the Game Boy's black and white, but it's like bold. It's right there. And the battery life was awful, and it was more cumbersome to sort of carry around. You couldn't stick it in your pocket.
No, they are giant sized, aren't they? So you can hardly call it portable.
Yeah.
I always remember.
I did love it. I did love it, but definitely Game Boy was the one. And I didn't care if his stuff was black and white, and maybe it was my age, but it's like when we were playing on the BBC games and it's got like 4 colours on the screen. Yeah. I don't care. I just want to know, is the game fun? Yeah,
the playability, lastability, hookability is the key. We don't care less what it looks like. When you think about one of the most addictive games ever that came on Nokia phones was Snake, and there was nothing to that, and people would sit there for hours on end playing that. There's no flashy colour graphics. There's no music or anything to go with it. It's just black thing going around the screen. That's it. But people would spend hours playing that. So where do you go after the Game Boy then?
Well, game at some point you must have got a Game Gear, and then I don't know. That's all kind of fuzzy. Because probably around that time, 14, started drinking very heavily, so it's all a blur for about 5 years. I think it might be as late as 97 that I got a PlayStation.
Yes, was it 95 they came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think it was 97 I got one, because I think I finished my GCSEs.
That was that same year I got mine. I just started working, and within 3 months of working, I'd gone and bought a brand new Wi-Fi system, a brand new portable television. I'd actually gone and bought a PlayStation 1. I think I paid 180 quid for it. And it got Alien Trilogy. That's all I got with it.
Yeah, I don't remember what I got with it. But I remember a few of the games I had. I mean, I had Tony Hawk. I love Tony Hawk.
Move on.
You know what? I'm actually going to do a video on this on the weekend. My top 10 PS1 games. So people can go back and look at that. But yeah, I mean, what do we have? It was all arcadey stuff. Like, so people always like, oh, I loved Final Fantasy, I love Resident Evil and all that. Nah, I'm not interested in any of that. Just played arcadey stuff because, you know, and the reason the reason I mentioned that I was drinking a lot is because I was literally out every night, and like I wasn't playing games, like sitting there playing games. The only time I really played games was with people.
Yeah.
So mostly it was like multiplayer stuff. So like V Rally, we played to death.
Great game.
Yeah, superb. Tony Hawk, stuff like that, and then like Street Fighter EX plus Alpha, which is probably second after GoldenEye, the game I've played the most, because we've just literally played that for like 8 hours a day for like, you know, forever. Like all summer we'd sit there and play it. Love that game. And I don't really remember what happened after that, but what the thing was at my school was people would swap consoles all the time. So I had a PlayStation, and then I'd play, you know, for a while, and then I'd swap it with someone who had an N64. And thankfully it was temporary, not like the Amiga. So you then swap back and you play on your PlayStation, and then someone else wants to swap their N64. So I always had a PlayStation or N64. And then I think at one point I must have got my own N64 as well, because I remember one birthday, a couple of my friends got me 1080 snowboarding. So obviously loved GoldenEye. I loved 1080 snowboarding, Diddy Kong Racing. But there were very, very few games that I really loved. And they were, again, games that were like really fun to play with friends, you know, because I was out all the time. So people are always like, oh, Ocarina of Time, how can you not like Ocarina of Time? It's like, because I was like out on the lash every night. You know, I didn't have time to sit and play like Zelda or anything. You know, so that I guess that's kind of the that era. Oh, and the Game Boy Color came out, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
I remember a couple of my mates robbed a Woolworths one night. So where we live, like there used to be a Woolworths there, which is like it's a Waitrose now, I think. And you could go on the roof. We used to hang out on the roof and just drink and stuff. But one of the windows was like, you know, into the storeroom of the Woolworths, and I wasn't there, but a couple of them broke in and they stole like 200 Game Boy Colors.
Cool.
So they would literally just dishing them out. And I remember one night I was at the pub, and one of the guys was there, and he's like, "Oh, can you buy us a pint?" And I'm like, "No, fuck off," sort of thing. And he goes, "Oh," and he was like so desperate for a pint. And he goes, "I'll give you one of these." And he gave me a Game Boy Color for a pint. And bear in mind, pint was like £2.50 back then. Yeah,
it's fairly expensive. Yeah,
but I never really gelled with the Game Boy Color like I did with the Game Boy.
No, I prefer the original.
Yeah.
It's okay, but I much prefer playing the games on the original one in the monochrome, really.
I'd just like to say I don't condone theft, kids. If you're listening, don't try this at home.
If anybody's listening, don't go robbing any Woolworths. We won't find any for a start.
No.
It's long gone there. What did they went? Was it around the time they went bust?
Yeah. Do you know? Funnily enough, actually, when they were going bust, that's when I bought Fallout 3. You know.
Oh right, yeah.
We talked about Fallout, and it was like £7, and I thought I'll buy it. I didn't touch it for about a year, and I put it in, and I played like the first couple of hours, which is really tedious. It's like building up to you leaving the vault, and I thought this is crap, and I left it for like another year, and eventually gave it another go, and then it became one of my all-time favorite games.
Yeah, it's all done on you.
Yeah.
Right, so let's drop back to your favourite game list. We'll try these last three, and then we'll sort of move on to the final section.
So
where do you want to go next?
well,
So you have mentioned one of the games already.
yeah. So seeing as we've mentioned it, let's do Link's Awakening on the Game Boy.
Right. So again, I've not played this one. So
Oh wow.
mainly because I don't hate Zelda games. I just at the moment I can't. Well, for a very long time I just can't put the time into it, and I think years ago had I done that, I'd probably been more of a fan of the game because I was playing other stuff. I used to think, oh, I ain't got time. That doesn't sound my sort of game. Walking around vast areas. I played Ocarina of Time for the first time when I got an N64 about 10 years ago. I thought, right, I'm going to sit down and give this a go. And I think I've got about an hour into it, and I was like, it's just not doing nothing for me.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Same for me.
So I've stayed away. I played Breath of the Wild, and that's just going to require me giving up a week of my life just to get some fun out of it. If I don't do anything else, like go to work and sleep and eat, I might get something out of it. But I just, it's a scary amount of time that I'd have to put into that game to really understand it. So that's why I haven't been back and played any other Zelda games, because I think they're all going to be the same. I could be wrong, but
so I try to play Ocarina of Time a couple of times, and I get like a few hours in, and then I just get bored, and I'm like, nah, it's just not my thing, you know. And Zelda fans, or like particularly Ocarina of Time fans, are just such dicks about it. Like, if you mention on a video that, oh, you know, Ocarina of Time's not my cup of tea, they're all like, oh, this guy said, Mummy, this guy doesn't like the game I like. Because I'm
it's very like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, shut up. Like, do you know what? There is no game in existence that everybody likes. Fact.
Yeah.
And get over it. So,
that's right.
You know, that's it. Everyone has their own stuff they like. I don't like Ocarina of Time. That's it. Done. But Link's Awakening, I love, and it may be hugely, you know, the nostalgia factor, because I got that, like I said, got that in '93, end of '93, for my birthday or for Christmas, and I loved it. And that game it's like you're saying, you know, Advance Wars sounds really impressive for the Game Boy Advance. Link's Awakening on the Game Boy was just incredibly elaborate.
Yeah,
you know, you're playing games like the most advanced game I probably played was like Super Mario 2, right? Which is really impressive on the Game Boy. But Zelda, like, you know, it's just this huge world with all this story and all this stuff, and you're immersed into it. And it's really different from the rest of the Zelda series, because Zelda series is always set in Hyrule, whereas this is set on a island. And I mean, spoilers. I mean, the game's been out for 27 years, so
I think you're safe.
Yeah.
I think you're safe. Yeah.
So the whole thing is, it's kind of like you know, Bobby Ewing in Dallas coming out of the shower, and he's like, "Hey, what's wrong, honey?"
We're showing our age here, but discussing that.
Yeah. You know, it was all a dream. So it takes place on this island called Koholint Island, where at the start of the game, Link washes up on the beach, and, you know, he's shipwrecked and all this. And it's this story where he has to collect 8 instruments and play the 8 instruments at once to play the song of the windfish, which will wake the windfish, which is in a giant egg at the top of the mountain. So on the island, you have all these different areas, but the central focal point is this huge mountain with an egg on it. And there's this windfish asleep in the egg, and it looks like a giant whale with like wings and shit. It's like a weird thing. But you play the song of the windfish, and the windfish wakes up from its dream, and you're trapped in its dream. So the only way you can free yourself from this island is to wake the windfish. And then at the end, you kind of wake up in the sea, and you're like hanging onto a bit of flotsam. You know, like you've shipwrecked and it was all a dream, but then the windfish jumps out and flies, and it's like, okay, maybe it's not a dream. You know, it's like a weird trippy thing, but I loved it. Like, as a kid, that blew my mind. The first time I finished the game, I'm like, this is incredible. And I played Link to the Past on my mate's SNES. My mate mate had that on his SNES, and I always thought that was really, really impressive.
Mm.
Really clean, like visually. I always thought that was one thing I always thought whenever I saw Link to the Past on SNES. I thought this just looks so clean and like, you know, gorgeous sprite work and everything, and the pixel art, and it looks incredible on Game Boy. It looks absolutely incredible, and I still play it all the time. It's one of those games that I play constantly. It recently got re-released on the Switch.
Oh yeah,
Which they did a good job on. You know, they kind of made it like modern graphics, but they didn't overdo it, and they didn't change the game really. Do you know what's good about the Switch one actually is that on the Game Boy you were obviously limited. You had 2 buttons, A and B, whereas on the Switch you have like 6 buttons.
That's right.
And the problem with Link's Awakening is you're constantly using all these different items. So it's kind of like, you know, there's 8 dungeons, and each dungeon gives you one of these instruments. And also all around the world, there's obstacles, and you can only get over these obstacles by possessing a certain item. You know, it's a staple of the Zelda series, really. You know, get this item and you can then access this area or whatever. So you have all these items in your inventory, and you have like a bracelet that gets you super strength, so you can lift rocks.
Yeah.
You get some boots, which mean you can run really fast. You got your sword and shield. Obviously, you have like magic powder and stuff, loads of stuff, right? But you can only equip 2 of them at once. So if you've got sword and shield, and then you want to lift a rock, you have to go into your inventory and like get the rock. And you know, stupid. They should just have said, if you've got the bracelet, you can lift the rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would make more sense.
Yeah, it would, but it doesn't work like that. So you have to constantly keep swapping out items to A and B. Whereas on the Switch, there's a button for sword and a button for shield. So they're constantly always equipped. And then you can map other stuff to the other 2 buttons. So
makes it much more easy, doesn't it? So
yeah, and I can't remember. I think even the bracelet, they've done it so that if you have the bracelet, you can just lift stuff. I think. I've only played it once, the Switch one, but I've played the Game Boy one many times, and I've played the DX because they did a DX one on Game Boy Color, where it was the same game but just a little bit of color. But they also added a little hidden dungeon, an extra dungeon, which is like hidden in the graveyard. But it's great. Like, I remember, like, if it was a rainy day at home when I was a kid, and I'd sit there and I'd try and complete it in one sitting, you know, sort of 6 to 8 hours. And the most recent time I played it, I think, like, you know, I have 2 like small sessions, 2 evenings, and it's completed. You know, it wouldn't take me more than 2 evenings to complete, and not like really, really long, meaty sessions. Once you know the game, it's really quick. But it's kind of knowing it and knowing your way around it and everything. But I love that. I love that game. It's just one of my all-time favorite games. Love it. Love the music. It's like a really emotional game. Yeah, it's great. I think it's just the pinnacle of the Zelda series for me, and I haven't really kind of dived into it since. You know, the 3D stuff doesn't really do it for me.
Your passion and enjoyment of it certainly comes through with what you were saying, and again, you know, everything else you've spoken about so far, for things I haven't played before, that doesn't sound too bad. Maybe I will do that, but then again, I sort of immediately think about the other Zelda games I do have. I don't play those, so am I going to dig that one out? Probably not.
I'd say, you know, if of all the stuff that's on my list, if you're ever going to play one, I'd say play Advance Wars 2.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's might be a nice surprise.
I'm definitely going to look that one up because I'm really interested in that. Okay, so two games to go on this list you're taking with you. Again, completely different eras, aren't they? Yeah. Which one do you want to do?
Let's go early first. So Syndicate.
Syndicate on the Amiga.
Yeah, you know what? On the Amiga or maybe on DOS. Maybe I'd pick DOS. And like, it really pains me to say that as an Amiga guy.
But DOS is interesting. I don't think we never sort of touched on DOS games. So
No, I
this is
kind of
quite
said
interesting.
like, at some point we got a PC and it replaced the Amiga on the desk, and the Amiga was relegated to under the bed, and we had a PC, and I wouldn't even know what it was if it was like a Pentium of some sort or so. My mate had a 386 actually when I had my Amiga,
Yeah.
and we used to play like Degeneration and Prince of Persia and stuff on that, and Life and Death. Do you ever play Life and Death? There's like real surgery simulator.
Oh no, I'd never played. I saw it advertised in I think it was in the Amiga magazines. I'm pretty sure and I remember being absolutely fascinated by it.
It was really weird.
Fascinated by the trauma center games. So I do like those.
It's kind of like Trauma Center, but it's like really formal. So like at the start of the game, you pick an operation. So it will tell you if it's an easy operation or like really complicated. Like if you do heart surgery, it's really complicated. But if you're going to remove someone's appendix, it's relatively easy. So you go, okay, I'll do an easy one. I'll remove the appendix. So you then go into a lecture in the game, and the lecture is how to do the fucking operation. So it's really boring already. You're like sitting in a lecture in the game. And we'd be like, fuck this. We'll just go and do the operation. So we'd go and do things like, oh, hello, madam, you're here for your appendix removal, and then we just turn the anaesthetic off and then just slice her open, and the patients would scream blood curdling screams, and then it's like you failed, you killed the patient. Or whatever.
Yeah. Oh. I remember seeing how graphic it looked as well in the magazines, but I didn't know you could do that.
Pretty grim, and it was, we never had the patience to sit through any lectures. It was a really bizarre game, but
I'm always suspicious of games trying to educate you, but I can understand why they were trying to educate you, because they're trying to do a delicately skilled operation.
Speaking of educational things, one thing that I always think about in like the DOS era that I loved was Encarta.
Oh yeah.
It's like a CD-ROM encyclopedia. I loved that I could put a CD-ROM in my computer and like I'd just look through it, and it had like video and like sounds and stuff.
Yes, yeah. I first came across one of those when I was at college, and I was just amazed by it. I thought, well, you can get video clips and things, and I remember using it when the college library said they hadn't turned the volume down on it, so I think on the Groucho Marx, and the Groucho Marx audio quote, it sort of boomed out like 100 decibels. Next thing you know, I got a hand on my shoulder. Stop that! I just pressed the. It's not my fault. You've turned it up.
Could have been worse.
Deafening. Yes, it could have been a lot worse. Yeah, I think Groucho Marx was pretty bad, because I was like, what the hell are you doing? What's that? I don't know.
But yeah, I have quite a few big box PC games from back in those days, just looking like the other adventures, like the LucasArts games, like Day of the Tentacle. That's one of my favorite games. Oh my god!
Yes, I played a few. Zack McCracken was another one I got in that Amiga bundle the other day, and I played a few of those, few of them, but again, they didn't appeal to me. I had a go, and it's all right, but they're not my sort of thing.
It's quite Marmite, isn't it? Yeah.
I can understand why people love them, because those people, like yourself, you're a big fan of those sort of games. They're great, and you can see the benefits of them. But maybe not me. I don't know.
But I loved, obviously the first-person shooters, all those clones that we were mentioning, and I loved the X-Wing series, like TIE Fighter. And TIE Fighter is the one that I removed from the list, which you were talking about.
That's it. Yeah. Because I played Rebel Assault. I think that was I had that on the PC, and I was just amazed by that. The fact you could actually have the music from the films just blaring out of your PC. It was like, wow, this is fantastic, and it's really good as well. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a fantastic game. That. Same with the Rebel Assault on the Rebel Assault on the GameCube. First one I got the game. Because when I first got my GameCube, you had a choice for games, and the Star Wars game was in there.
Mm.
And it was just like, I was just blown away by that. I was like, wow, I've played it a few months ago. It's still brilliant. It really is. It's still amazing.
The reason I always picked TIE Fighter out of them is because like you had X-Wing, which was cool, but then TIE Fighter let you be the bad guy, and it had Admiral Thrawn in, and Admiral Thrawn recently mentioned in The Mandalorian. If anyone's watched The Mandalorian, but that was a cool little nod, and you know, people saying, oh yeah, that's a shout back to this novel or whatever, and I'm like, that's a shout back to TIE Fighter, you know. Admiral Thrawn, he was like the big bad in TIE Fighter, although he wasn't the big bad because he was your boss essentially, because you were an Empire guy, Imperial fighter pilot. Really cool.
And it was like Dark Force as well. That was a similar thing, was it? You got a chance to play as a
well, you were
not a stormtrooper. You got a chance to sort of infiltrate from the inside. Was that right? No.
Yeah. So you play a guy called Kyle Katarn, who I'm hoping will reappear in the Star Wars universe now with all this Disney stuff. That would be cool. But he infiltrates the Dark Trooper project, where they're designing the Dark Troopers, which is a new robotic super stormtrooper thing. And if anyone's seen The Mandalorian, the Dark Troopers are in that, wearing all black, and they originated in the game TIE Fighter. That was the very first instance, and they were created for that game. So the fact that they popped up in Mandalorian is so fucking cool, you know.
I've seen The Mandalorian. That's a good series, that. But I know very little about the Star Wars universe beyond the film, so that was sort of lost on me. But I can watch it now and then go, I know what they are now.
Well, it's nice because you know, whether you know stuff about the Star Wars universe or not, the fact is when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they said, right, we're gonna just completely bin all the extended universe. None of that's legit, right?
Yeah.
And which is really disappointing, because stuff like one of my favorite novels when I was growing up, there's a trilogy of novels, and they're kind of like short stories, and one of them is called Tales of the Bounty Hunters, and it's all stories of all the different bounty hunters that you see lined up in Empire Strikes Back, and one of them is a tale of how Boba Fett escapes from the Sarlacc pit and everything. And I always loved that story. And when I was a kid, even people used to say, oh yeah, when Boba Fett dies, and I'd be like, he didn't die, you know, because I was thinking I'm really smart because I read the novel. So when Disney bought Lucasfilm, and I'm like, okay, that's all gone, like everything's gone. So the fact that, like, you know, the Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are like such super huge Star Wars geeks. With The Mandalorian, they're bringing a lot of the extended universe stuff back in, which is joyous.
Yeah.
So they're bringing in the Boba Fett lived, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
And they brought these Dark Troopers in, and they brought Admiral Thrawn in, and they're bringing all this other stuff in. And it's like, you know, I'm no like huge super Star Wars geek or anything, like, you know, I just can't say how happy I was to see all that stuff sort of trickling back in, you know.
It's an amazing theme tune to that program.
Oh, he's so talented. What's his name? Like Ludwig Göransson.
Yeah, it's
he's a nutter.
But it's just captures the, I don't know, it just fits perfectly. It's got that old West, it's like an old spaghetti Western feel to it. I don't know what it is, which fits perfectly into that. Because, you know, when Star Wars came out originally, we all massively off track, by the way, but I don't really care. We're talking about Syndicate, we're not talking about Star Wars. But when Star Wars came out, it was sort of perceived as the sort of space, a Western in space.
Yes.
I think Barry Norman described it like that. And so when you get to The Mandalorian, you've got that. It just feels like a Western. It just feels like you're going from place to place, and the setting and the theme tune to go with it. It just feels like that.
I think that's what Lucas was going for, like Western, and like some influence from sort of the Japanese kind of equivalent of Westerns, you know.
The Kurosawa film.
Kurosawa,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah. But yeah, it's a superb series. It really is.
There's I can't remember where I saw the documentary. but it might be on Disney. But there's a documentary about with like a big bit about the theme tune and Ludwig Göransson composing the theme tune. It shows him in his studio and everything, and like his process, because he composes all sorts of different types of music, like, you know, the dubsteppy bits in there and everything is him, you know.
Yeah.
But it actually shows a clip of the first time, you know, like, and he gets the little, whatever they are, pan pipes or whatever the hell weird thing he's got. And it shows sort of a little bit of it, but it shows him coming up to Jon Favreau and playing it on his phone for the first time. So Jon Favreau's like genuine reaction to hearing it for the first time. That's awesome.
I'll try and track that down then. Or, but just fascinating. But the theme at one point sort of veers off into Rocky. I don't know if you sort of the orchestra comes in. He goes that sounds like just wait for that bit to come. But when something fits a program like that, you know you've hit everything. You've got a program that looks fantastic. It's brilliantly written. It's brilliantly acted. The story's great, and the theme tune is out, you know, knocked out of the park. Then, as far as I'm concerned, that's about as good as you can get. Really, everything just comes together element wise.
Yeah, it's perfect, and you know, the big thing is they're respecting the prior stuff, which you know, arguably the recent trilogy of films didn't respect that so much.
Yeah, they when I watched The Force Awakens, I was like, well, this is just Star Wars greatest hits, isn't it? This is bits of the 6 previous films sort of stuck together into one.
Is that the first? Is that
that was the 7th film? Yeah.
I actually loved that. I was so excited, and I remember like I was in the cinema and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so excited. And then like I always insist on sitting through the whole credits because I want to listen to the Star Wars music, and the missus gets the right arsehole. And and I'm like, she's like, what, is there a hidden scene? Is there a deleted scene? And I'm like, no, I want to listen to music. Like, shush. And I went to pictures and saw that twice, and I was going a third time, but something came up and we couldn't go. But I loved it. I thought it was just encapsulated that Star Wars thing. And yeah, it was just a rehash of A New Hope, you could say, but it did feel kind of Star Wars to me. But the one that felt super Star Wars for me, that I thought was fantastic, was Rogue One. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, that is a really good film. I did enjoy it. It's probably the one I enjoyed the most. Is it 5 they've done now, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Completely trilogy. Rogue One and Solo.
Solo, yeah. I mean, it's easily the best of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
By miles.
I think because we got quite an extensive 3D collection. So I think Solo came out in 3D, but the other 4 did. So we got those in 3D. Very impressive. I went to see The Phantom Menace when it came out in the cinema. That was my big thing. Yeah,
I've seen all the others at the cinema.
I caught Star Wars when it was re-released in 97, I think it was. Yeah, that's when I watched Star Wars Empire and Jedi for the first time. Because you know what, this is going to be interesting. Like when I think back, because like Star Wars 77, Empire 80, Return of the Jedi 83, right? Yeah.
Obviously in 83 I was 2. I didn't go and watch it at the pictures. I didn't see it at the pictures until that 90s re-release that you said. But if you look at when they came out in the UK on telly, it's really interesting. So like Jedi didn't come out till like 88, I think, in the UK on telly.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So when I think, hang on, why is Star Wars so big? It's because I grew up like loving Star Wars. And then in 88 would have been not until 88, probably the first time I saw Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
You know?
That would be all right, yeah.
And Empire the same. It's really late. It's like way later than 1980 that it came out first in the UK.
So we always it used to be on television all the time when we were growing up. So because a friend of mine used to boast about he had the very first VHS recording when Star Wars was first on the telly, which I don't know. It seems about it must have been 1980, something like that. I'm guessing. But they was always on. In another, you mentioned that, another interesting fact, Rocky 3, just going completely off subject here. that came out, I think, in '82. That didn't get shown on television until 1994, 95,
Wow.
which was really weird for a Rocky film. Really weird. And there's even going back even further, there's a Laurel and Hardy film called The Dancing Masters, which came out in 1943. That didn't get shown on British television until 1994, I think it was. No, it wasn't lost or anything like that, or no copyright reasons. It was crap. That's why they didn't show it. But yeah, it turned up on Sky Movies Gold, I think it was, and it got a P next to it in the Radio Times. And usually when they put a P next to it, it says Premiere. So that can't be right. And
God.
So I'm quite a Laurel and Hardy fan, and I remember reading about it. They're saying it was the last Laurel and Hardy feature film to get premiered on British television, 50 years after they made it.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Anyway, wasn't worth the wait. Yeah, Syndicate.
Yeah, let's work our way. Huge tangent there.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's good though, isn't it? It's a good tangent, that, Pete.
Yeah, I love a good tangent. Don't you?
Oh, me too. Go on then, Syndicate. Let's talk about that one.
So Syndicate, the reason I might pick the DOS version actually is because they are slightly different. So the Amiga version has no in-level music, and that's probably why I'm going to pick the DOS version, because I love the music so much. And the Amiga version does some stuff better as well, though. Like the explosions look better and stuff like that, but yeah, whatever you play it on, it's pretty much the same game. Just don't play any of the terrible console versions. So it was ported to Mega Drive and SNES, but it's so poorly done that it's like a completely different game. It's like nothing.
Were they done by the same people or not?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember, because Bullfrog, Peter Molyneux's company that made Syndicate.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, if anyone hasn't played the game, it is scarily relevant today. It came out in '93, I believe, and this is that golden era for me, sort of '93. I think I actually worked it out a couple of months ago, and I spent a good amount of time working out what are sort of my best years. And I was going to make a video, but didn't bother. But I think '93 was my best ever year for games. But yeah, it's a sort of dystopian future where corporations rule the world, if you can imagine such a thing.
That'd never happen.
Yeah.
Not in our lifetime. Yeah.
No. Each corporation, that's why it's called Syndicate. Basically, it's run by all these syndicates, and these corporations operate kind of like the mob, and they control these augmented sort of cyborg humans, and these cyborg humans do their bidding, and you control a team of these cyborgs, and each level you get a team of 4 cyborgs, and you'll get a mission to complete. So it's like each level's different. It's like a little sort of mini sort of city. So you've got buildings, you've got like trains that operate, you've got cars that you can drive, stuff like that. There's police, there's private security, and then there's a load of civilians. And there's also enemy syndicates. So if you see enemy syndicate agents, they're going to be hot on your tail and up for a scrap, and they've got some serious firepower. So what you do is you complete the missions, and you get a mission like it'll be, for example, just assassinate someone, escort someone to safety, or persuade, quote unquote, someone to help you. So, for example, there'll be like a scientist that a particular corporation, your corporation, they want this scientist to work for them, but he's not necessarily willing to do that of his own free will. So you use a weapon called the Persuadertron, which is one of the greatest things.
Names.
Yeah, one of the greatest bits of Syndicate. So you go, you activate your Persuadertron, and anyone you come in within, like a foot radius of, then will follow you blindly.
Right.
So you go to the scientist and you persuade them, and then he'll follow you, and you take him to the evacuation point or whatever. But the one consequence of this Persuadertron that is super fun is if there's like, you know, a load of civilians on a level, you can go and persuade like 100 civilians, and then they will just walk around you. So it's like a massive human shield.
Right.
So if you're going to go and take on enemy syndicate agents and you think it might be a bit of a sort of, you know, they might have some firepower on them, you can go and get a huge human shield of these persuaded civilians who will just follow you blindly, and they act as a shield, and it's great fun to walk around the levels with just 100 civilians following you. But the pathing is quite poor. Like the pathing can be really shit in it, which can be annoying sometimes. But yeah, so you complete the mission, and the world map is literally a world map. So it's all countries on the on a literal world map, and each time you take a territory, you can then tax that territory, and taxing the territories gives you income, and income can be used to buy upgrades for your syndicate agents. So you can buy augmented body parts so they can run faster, they are stronger, they can see better, all sorts of all that stuff. You can also invest money into research. So researching new body parts and augmentations or new weaponry. So the more you invest into researching weaponry, the more advanced weaponry you'll have. And then obviously you also spend your money on buying that weaponry once it's available. It's kind of a double-edged sword, the taxation, because when you tax a territory, you can increase the tax, which will give you more income, but it will also increase the chances of a rebellion in that territory. And in the event of a rebellion, you have to send your syndicate agents back there, and you'll have to take on other corporations to sort of secure that territory. So what I normally do is, which is a little bit naughty, is I just put it to really lowest taxation.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of anyone getting pissed off, and then I'll just leave my computer on overnight or my Amiga on overnight, and during that time, because it's in real time, it's just ticking up the money. So then you're like a millionaire and you can just research whatever you want. So that's normally my way around that. But it gets super tough. Like the game gets super hard, but it's super fun, really fun. The music's amazing, really atmospheric. It's just so like sort of Blade Runner, dystopian kind of dinginess. The cars look awesome, like little bubble cars, like they're straight out of a sci-fi, you know. And you've got some really cool sound effects, like the weapons sound awesome. And when the police see you, they'll be like, police, what do they say? Police, nobody move or freeze or something. And when you select certain things, it goes selected, you know, in this robotic voice. It's so cool. It's such a cool game, man. But yeah, one of the reasons I picked it is because like it's one of those games that I'll never get old of playing, and it's got like a really good there's a good meaty like amount of time
to put into it and get stuff out of it. Yeah,
I mean, if you were to play it start to finish flawlessly, it'd probably take you like 4 hours, but you're going to die a hell of a lot and restart a hell of a lot. You know, it's really tough.
So sometimes taking the slow approach or the more measured approach to it is the better way of doing it.
But yeah, brilliant game.
Yeah, your passion and detail coming out of that is absolutely brilliant. It is a game. I must be honest with you. For some reason, I always get that game confused with Corporation. I don't know why. I just don't know what it is. As soon as you said it, I thought it's that one with the green monster on the box. No, it's not. That's called Corporation. I have this with some games. I'll get them confused, but I've never played it. But again, it wouldn't have been something that would appeal to me at the time. I know of it, but I've never played it. But again, I don't know. I might have to think about looking at that one and just.
I think it's on GOG. If you are interested, the DOS version.
It may have been in that pile of games I picked up last week. I don't know. I haven't catalogued everything that was in there, so I might actually stumble across and go, "Oh yeah, I've got a copy of it again now." So that might be worth having a look at. That's an interesting one. That's a really interesting game. Some interesting choices here. I like this.
Good.
And we got to your last one as well.
Yeah.
The last, your favourite games that you would happily be whiling away the hours in a desert island on.
So yeah, last one is one that I can get a lot of hours out of, and that's Skyrim. On PS3, but whatever, I don't mind whatever I had it on. I mean, funnily enough, the amount of times I've bought this game, which is a meme in itself, isn't it? Like, how many platforms can Todd Howard release this thing on? So I bought it on PS3 originally, and it's funny because I never would have played this game without Fallout 3. Never would have played like a fantasy adventure game like this ever. But because it was made by Bethesda, I was like, oh, it's an adventure game made by Bethesda, and I love Fallout. Maybe I should give it a go. So I thought, I'll wait until it's cheap and I'll get it. But the day one it came out, I caved and I went down Tesco and I bought it. But it's amazing. And yeah, I had it on PS3, and then I bought like the Legendary Edition or whatever on PS3, which has all the DLC. And then I bought it on PS4, and then I bought it on Switch. And I've played hundreds of hours of it on all of those systems. And it's one of those games that, I must have played it at least 6 times, and by played it I mean minimum of 200 hours each playthrough.
1,200 hours, near enough.
Yeah, easily. When you play Fallout or you play Skyrim, it's going to be 100 to 200 hours for a playthrough. Yeah. I remember when Fallout 4 came out and everyone's giving opinions on it, and I'm like, well, I haven't played 40 hours of it yet, because I refuse to rate one of those games until I've played 40 hours, because it doesn't really start. It doesn't really start until like 40 hours in.
Yeah.
If you're reviewing it before then, you're full of shit. Like all these tubers who put out a video like the day after a game comes out, and it's like, you haven't played it enough, man.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
That's it. Games like that need that time investment into them.
But yeah, it's kind of like the New Vegas factor, that it's just the freedom to the reason I can play it that many times for that long is because you can have a completely different kind of experience each time. So like, it's really tempting to go to play as a stealth archer because if you can sneak in the shadows and people don't see you, and you just hit them with a bow and arrow from like miles away, happy days, right?
That's it.
But then like you play it,
winner.
Yeah, exactly. You play it again and you think, I really should try something else. So you you're more like up close and personal, like using swords, and you might use a little bit of magic here and there, and then like you start experimenting with other magic and stuff and blah 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 on another playthrough. And there's so many ways to like kind of build a character of how you want to do their perks and their skills and how they specialize. And it's got a really interesting perk tree system where they're all represented by constellations. And the way it's done is, the more you do something, the more skilled you are at that thing. So rather than you leveling up and you going, right, I'm going to put 10 points into lock picking because I want to be better at lock picking. So that's how Fallout works, right? Fallout, you choose where you're going to specialize, whereas in Skyrim it's like, if you want to get better at lock picking, you do lock picking.
Yeah.
If you want to get better at hand-to-hand combat, you bash people. Do you know what I mean? But
you develop your own skills, don't you?
Yeah, which is amazing. So like on the way to getting like really powerful at something, you get really good at something. And this most recent playthrough I did on the Switch, I thought I'm gonna like really mix it up this time. And how I played through it that time was, I was fairly like non-specific character-wise, although I said I'm not going to use any bows and arrows again, but I thought I'm going to specialize in some of like the types of magic that I've not really used, because I kind of really like using the combat magic like fire and ice and stuff like that. I got really into sort of conjuring magic, where you can conjure stuff to scrap for you and that, and you can also have companions. So like you befriend people, and if you do something for them, they'll follow you into battle. So
Yeah.
I got into this thing where I was like, right, I'm going to have my companion with like a massive axe or something, or a hammer, and then I'm going to conjure stuff, and they're all going to fight for me, and I'm going to stand back and do nothing, right?
Mm.
And it worked great, and it was a really interesting way to play the game, where I'm the main character, but I'm not doing any of the fighting. I'm just like summoning or ordering people to do the fighting for me. And it was a really fun way to play it. Obviously, inevitably, there's loads of times when you have to start fighting because
You've got to get involved.
stiff stuff kicks off, or your things you've summoned die, or this, that, and the other happens. But there's just infinite ways to play it, and I think that if I had it on a desert island, I could easily play it again and again and again, just switching it up.
Yeah.
And it's a huge game, absolutely huge. Like hundreds of locations, and sometimes each location will be like hours and hours and hours and hours of like trawling through a cave or whatever. Sometimes you think, oh, just before I go to bed, I'll just pop in this cave, and then like 4 hours later, you come out of the cave and you're like, fuck, I've got to go to work in an hour or whatever.
It's a game I do own, because I seem to think at some point that it's a game I'm going to have to at least experience once. But again, it's not the sort of game I would go for. But like you're saying there, and I know from somebody I know at work, their son got straight into it, and she always, he's been playing this for X number of hours now, he's done this and he's done that, and people absolutely love this game. Absolutely love it. And he said it's come out in every single format there is. I don't think it's come out on Apple Watch yet, but I don't think it'll be too long before it does actually come out on that format.
I did see it running on a Samsung fridge, though. For real, yeah.
And I thought that was, okay, well, there we go.
It's a great game, and it's got its flaws. All Bethesda games have got its flaws. I'm not saying it's a perfect game, but it's just it's just such an, and that's what I look for, something that I can really immerse myself in and just propagate get in.
Again, as I said right at the very start, 6 hours ago, it was you've thought this through, and it's not so much your favourite games, because as you said, if you pick your favourite games, some of them are likely to be an awful lot shorter, and you can play through them in a couple of hours or whatever, and it's done. These games here, particularly the last one, you can approach it in a different way and get a different experience out of it. So there's more to it than that, and I would be the same if my favourite genre is football management games. I love those. But I could again play that in so many different ways. I could start at the very top. I could start down the very bottom, and I'll get a different experience each time. Or I could start in the middle, and it's one of those. So, there's some great choices in there. Before we get on to your last two, more gaming history. I think we obviously got to the PlayStation 1. Was there much after that before you want to sort of bring in, or? I think we sort of got into the N64 PlayStation 1 era.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like moving out and GameCube and PlayStation and stuff. And even then, in my 20s, I was playing Mega Drive. I was still playing the retro stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I realised at some point when we were talking that I just completely glossed over arcades, which is obviously a massive part of the 80s,
That's right, yeah.
We didn't really talk about, did we? But obviously in the 80s, like, arcades were just the thing, and I was fascinated by arcades, and I played a lot of arcades. But yeah, in my 20s, it was like it wasn't really, I was heavily into gaming. Like I said, I was like, always had a console and I'd play stuff, but generally I was up to other stuff, and I'd game here and there. But it wasn't really until the PS3 came in that I got heavily back into it. But yeah, I loved my GameCube. I funnily enough, the game I always remember loving on the GameCube was Tiger Woods. And we'd sit around and play that, and it was fun. And PlayStation 2, I remember. Oh, actually, I haven't even mentioned Dreamcast. I should mention Dreamcast, really. So PlayStation 2, I had one. I had one when I first moved out. I had a PlayStation 2, and we had the Mega Drive set up. And like when I moved out of home, I spent a load of money, like you were saying, on a hi-fi system and everything. And we had this
Yeah.
massive hi-fi system set up in the lounge, and I was sort of flat sharing a 3-bedroom flat with 2 mates, and we had a PlayStation 2 there, and we had the Mega Drive set up. And first thing we did was playing a load of Mega Drive games, blasting out the speakers, and thought that was great. So this is like 2000, sort of 2001, and yeah, my mate had a Dreamcast who lived there. Absolutely loved that. We'd just stay up all night and we'd play like Power Stone, Soul Calibur, MSR, to Crazy Taxi, stuff like that.
MSR, brilliant. I'm a massive racing game fan, and that I remember seeing that for the first time. I thought, wow, this is brilliant. Look at the quality of the graphics, and I think it still looks pretty good now.
Yeah, really impressive. I love Bizarre Creations. I actually love Blur. That's one of probably my favorite driving game of all time. And that's I think the last driving game they made, and they made one other game I believe after that. It wasn't a driving game, but then they shut down.
We mentioned Blur on the podcast where we talked about games beginning with B, and that one was, I think, Gernaldinho brought it up and said that was definitely a game worth one of his recommended games. And I thought, I've never played that. I thought I'd have got a copy of it, but I haven't. So I've got to get myself. I never played it.
You got to get that, man. Oh my god! Yeah. Like when lockdown first happened, because my mates don't really play games, but everyone was so bored, and they all bought PS3s right at the start of lockdown, which I thought was hilarious. And so we'd hook up. I've got a PS3. We'd hook it up and we'd play Blur online, and all chat through our phones. But it's awesome. It's like real cars. I mean, I'm sure Rob told you, but it's like real cars, but with like Mario Kart pickups.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing, and it's that kind of multiplayer where anything can happen, and it's chaos, and it's really good fun.
It's one of those that passed me by, and I think it's getting a little bit on the pricey side. It's not super cheap when it was second-hand games. It's getting certainly I think the £8 to £12 bracket. So I'm making a special dispensation to buy that if I do find it, but I haven't found a copy yet. So I shall go out again and have another look.
But yeah, I remember when we lived there and had a PS2, and I had it must have been Grand Theft Auto 3 and then Vice City, and then I must have got a GameCube because I moved somewhere else, and I remember I had a GameCube there. But then San Andreas came out.
Yep.
And I remember that I had like a CRT set up, and I went out and I spent like all the money I had at the time on buying another PlayStation 2 and a copy of San Andreas so I could play it, right? So San Andreas turned up day one, and I put it in my PS2 to play, and my CRT decides to just stop working. Literally at that exact moment. So I'm like, oh my God, I have to play this game. So I drive down to Tesco, my local Tesco, and I'm like, I don't have any money, right? So I go and put a massive CRT in the trolley, 28-inch thing, and I take it to checkout, and I just wrote a check that I knew would bounce for it, which I don't know if I'm admitting to a crime there. Is that illegal? Probably is.
Well, we can edit it out.
No, don't edit it out. I'm not going to get nicked 20 years later for that. And plus, I'd like to see you fuckers prove it. All right. So I took this TV home, and I got to play San Andreas, and then like a week later, Tesco were like, your check bounced, mate. And then I went and paid them because by then I had the money. I'd been paid or whatever. It was a loan.
I'm with you. You carried a 28-inch CRT. That's very impressive. Because I work with sort of guys who repairs televisions. We don't see them much now, but to lift one of those on your own, that's pretty good going.
Well, I'd imagine I would have had someone with me.
I would hope you would have.
Probably, yeah.
But if we used to have something like that, if there's anything bigger than a 26-inch CRT, we'd have to send 2 guys out to pick it up. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, I mean, when I got the 28-inch B&O, that's like 40 kilograms, something, isn't it? And that was you could lift it with one person, but it was damn tough getting up the stairs.
That's it. That's it.
But those like 28-inch ones were absolutely huge at the time. Just like not even the weight; it was just like the size and dimensions. Just trying to lift one.
The size of the box on the back of it, and massive, absolutely huge things.
But yeah, I'm sure I've forgotten stuff interspersed in there. But Game Boy Advance, obviously, Game Boy Advance. I got one. Well, we did say that, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll draw a line under that then, because I mean that covers a fair amount of systems there as well. You've talked about some of the stuff you've been playing games on more modern, like the Switch and PS4. So we've covered quite a lot of your history there. The arcade probably would have been nice to go through, but maybe another time we're doing arcade special or something.
Yeah. I always forget it. Whenever I'm thinking of stuff, I kind of think of like what I had at home, and I always forget to mention arcades, although it was a huge part of my childhood, you know.
I mean, again, it was that era. You said the 80s. You said earlier the 80s was that time period where it was just so much great stuff going through there, and that's how I discovered a lot of games as well. That's how I first heard about Outrun. I'd never have heard about if Outrun had come out on the home systems. I'd have never have thought about it, but that's what got me interested. So when I saw games that were coming out, like Operation Wolf and Space Harrier and Enduro Race, I'd seen the arcade machines. Like, oh, look at the sight of that! That's going to be brilliant, even though both the times they weren't.
Operation Wolf is always the one for me that was the spectacle when I was a kid, and I'd see Operation Wolf. It was like, it's just absolute fascination, and straight over there to play it.
It's a feedback on that gun. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, terrible at it, but
because it's like a light gun game, but it's actually just a joystick with a gun on it.
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah,
it looks decided really impressive, but when you actually find that out, it's like, oh, okay. But no, you still can't take that away. It's an arcade machine with an Uzi mounted to the front of it, and Operation Thunderbolt was two of them.
And like you said, feedback was like, incredible.
To make, I said to make it more realistic, but obviously when you're 12 years old, you don't really know what firing an Uzi 9mm feels like, or you shouldn't do anyway.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, unless you're bought them in Russia, I don't know. Let's move on to the final two games then, because
have we not done them all?
No, we've still got the one that you take with you.
Oh, of course, yeah. Oh my God,
we always finish on those. So this is the one that we always ask you to bring with you, which is we discussed it quite a bit about other games. Having the time to put into it, or you started and played and you never got all the way through, or you lost interest in, but you wanted to go back and play. This is from PlayStation 1, isn't it? So
it is, yeah. I mean, yeah, it is, but I mean, I suppose the series in general, because I've not played any of them. More, I was
going to say, are we calling just the one of the whole series? But yeah.
Any one of them really, and it's Gran Turismo. But back in the PlayStation 1 era, my mate, one of my best mates, who's still one of my best mates, had the original, and I always kind of admired it. I admire it as a series, but I've always been an arcade racer person. I was never really into the sort of simulation races. I don't think I have the patience to put all that time in and everything. But I thought, hey, if I'm going to be stuck on a desert island, I mean, that's like a really in-depth game. You get right into it. You learn how to drive. It's like a whole, it's like a whole career thing, isn't it? So I thought that'd be a perfect game to actually then, for the first time get stuck into. If I'm stuck on a desert island, I've got all this time, I can practice at it, get good at it and stuff.
I it's a good choice for it. I mean, I'm like you. I don't like simulation, driving simulation games. When I first heard it was coming out, I bought it pretty much as soon as it came out. So I got a PlayStation 1 by that point, and I thought, yeah, great. Everyone's raving about how this is the best driving game ever. It looked incredibly impressive at the time, but it was like driving a real car. And I thought, I don't want to drive a real car. I want to go around corners at 90 miles an hour. That's what I want to do without worrying about veering off. Plus the fact, if you did have an accident, there was no vehicle damage. If you remember, there's no vehicle damage, and that's always been a down point to me. So as the series has gone on, I've appreciated it more. So 5 and 6 on the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, I've played quite a bit of, and I do like the game now. I've grown to appreciate it more. But when it first came out, it's like, I don't like this. It's too serious.
Yeah,
it's too serious.
It's like a job.
Yeah. And like we said earlier about games that are trying to educate you.
Yeah,
I've always been very suspicious about it. I think again, it's in a situation like that, it's an ideal game to do it, and you'd probably make a better job than Al did when he ran his series of driving tests on Gran Turismo last year, didn't he? During lockdown,
did he?
Yeah, with hilarious consequences. Everyone used to go on about it. So yeah, if you haven't seen those, it's worth checking those out. Just for the humour of it, but yeah, it's. At the time, it was like, I don't want to play this, but now I think, yeah, maybe there's a bit more to it. Having said that, on the more modern versions, when you're doing sessions, or you got passing certain tests, or you've got to do this particular bit before you move on to the next bit, I get so far with those, and I get really bored. And if I've had 2 or 3 goes at it, and I was like, how can I go any quicker? How can I take that corner any better than I'm taking it there? And I'm still like that far short.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah, and then I'll get bored, and then I say, right, I'm not playing that again. And I think I got to that point with 5. 5 was all right when I was driving around and having races and whatever, but I was trying to be a bit more serious. It's like, no, gave up with it to go back and do it. But yeah, I like your choice on that one. And as we finish off, we always leave this one to the very end. The game you hate most of all. We've had some interesting selections. Again, not had this one before. Go on then. What is it?
This game is utter dog shit, and it is Lost via Domus for PS3. Don't know if it came out on 360. Maybe it did. If it did, avoid it at all costs.
What's it about?
Now, it's allegedly based on Lost, the TV show, which is, for me, the greatest TV show ever.
Right.
Absolutely love Lost. We watch it every year all the way through, me and the missus. But the game must have come out very early on, first couple of series, so they didn't have much kind of material to work with. They thought we'll cash in and make a game. I can't even remember what Via Domus is alluding to within the game. And it's so bad I can't even remember much about the game. And I think that's because there wasn't much to the game. So I remember me and my mate, we wanted a PlayStation 3 game to play. We were bored one day and we went somewhere and that was cheap and we bought it. It was regrettable. We finished it in like an hour and 20 minutes.
That's short.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the whole hour and 20 minutes was torturous, and it was just running around an island. And I think there was like you were running around, and I think the smoke monster would come, and you had to hide in like the reeds, like in the trees, like they do in the show. And none of that was fun. And then the majority of the actual gameplay was like like games that have a hacking mini game.
Yeah.
Like do you remember Pipe Mania?
Pipe Mania, yes, I do. Yeah.
So
that one.
Yes, and that was a LucasArts game. Actually, weirdly, or Lucasfilm game. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And Steve Purcell actually did the box art for Pipe Mania. And it's a really weird one because nowhere on the box, I've got a copy, nowhere on the box does it say Lucasfilm at all.
That's what I can't remember. Did Empire? Is it Empire?
It might
Empire.
be. Yeah, I think it is Empire because how Lucas did the publishing is they had each country would have their own publisher, so they wouldn't just go right. You've got the European distribution rights. They'd go Germany, UK, France. They'd each one would have a different thing. And I think it was Empire that had the UK. But it had no Lucasfilm on the box, and you have to go and read the manual, and in tiny little letters at the bottom it says developed by Lucasfilm, and it's mentioned Steve Bissell and whoever. I think Mark Ferrari might have done some sprite work on it, and he did all the sprite work for Zach McCracken, which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I did not know that. I've learnt that. That is really interesting.
So yeah, it's like connecting pipes, and liquid goes through the right. And I'm pretty sure the hacking minigame in Lost is something like that. Where you've got a screen, you just got to move tiles or to move pipes or something like that. But I think it was framed as it was wiring, like you're hacking the wiring on a door or something. So like half of running around a jungle doing nothing, and then half of doing these shitty hacking little mini games, and then it's like, hey, the game's finished an hour and 20 minutes later. And it's like, are you kidding me? Worst game ever.
Sounds it. Do you not see the irony? This is the worst game you've picked, and it's all about people being stuck on an island.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I must be honest with you. I watched the first couple of 3 episodes of the series, and I just couldn't get into it. So I don't know. As you said, you're a massive fan of it, and a lot of people do enjoy it. But
it's a huge investment. That's the problem. Like, you really have to get to seasons 4 and 5 when all the sci-fi stuff comes in. When it gets heavily science fiction, that's you need to power through to get there. But as a whole, the whole thing is amazing. I know loads of people hate the ending because they don't understand the ending.
Yeah, I can invest in other shows. Sometimes they don't need to be immediately grabbed. I can take a couple episodes to get into something, but this one, cause a friend of mine recommended it to us, and we'll give anything a go and see if it's any good or not. But it just wasn't our cup of tea, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, is it?
Yeah,
nothing. Like we said earlier, nothing is. Not gonna complain if someone doesn't like something I like. But yeah, we love it. We watch it every year. Literally, we watch all 6 seasons every year.
It is an investment. That's a lot of time spent. You can't please everybody, and I don't think that game pleased anybody at all, did it? It's generally regarded as one of the worst games ever. Yeah,
and rightly so.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing, and I don't think they ever made a Lost game since then, as far as I know. I mean, it's Lost. It doesn't really make sense as a game. Is
it one of these cases where they just made the game because the TV series was successful?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just cash in. Of the worst kind.
The one I was invested in around the same time was 24.
Oh yeah, is that game of that any good?
The game of that is actually a lot. People say it's tried to be like a TV series and it's not as good, but I've got to be honest with you, it is a good game, and the fact you can pick it up for practically nothing now anyway. It makes it even more of a bargain, and it's really good. You get that whole feel of a TV episode around it. It really is good.
So I never watched even 1 minute of that show.
Did you not?
No.
I didn't watch. I watched the first series for a bit, and then I think it was the third series I got back into it, and I sort of watched it all the way. I even watched the redo over they did a few years ago without Kiefer Sutherland in it.
All right.
Where it wasn't actually done over. Well, it wasn't like 24 episodes. It was a much shorter version of it, and that was okay. That was okay. It wasn't brilliant, and I think after about 4 or 5 series, it began to sort of lose its appeal a little bit. But it was great. It was like the X-Files. The X-Files were great for the first couple of series, and then it just all went to pot.
Got a bit silly, didn't it?
Just a bit. And you find that with programs, like they get to a certain point, and it just gets a bit silly, and then they sort of lose a plot, and before you know it, they're just making the program for the sake of it. So, yeah. That's a slightly down point to finish on, but that's not really fun. But yeah, I mean, there's some fantastic stuff we've talked about during this episode, and I think I always say something for everybody in there. But there's again different sort of genres, different sort of styles of games, different eras of games. It's been great to hear your gaming history as well.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's been fun for me, kind of like having to think and relive all that, and it's funny the memories that pop up.
No, yeah, I've really enjoyed listening to you, and the passion and comes out about the games. I said that 2 or 3 times, but it does. By the way you describe the games, go into great detail about them, and you can sense you've played these for long periods of time. You know them inside out. It's not just something you've picked out at random. It's games that have that feeling, but also perfect for this situation.
Yeah, I know that, I did say I've picked these games because I'm stuck on a desert island, but these are all games that I absolutely adore. Don't make no mistake. They are games that I love to death,
And they're perfect for this situation, which is just it's just great, man. That's I know we've done 3 hours, but I tell you that's flown by. That really
Yeah,
has done.
it really has. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been fantastic. Well, I don't know what else to say other than Pete. Thank you very much indeed for being the latest guest on Desert Island Games. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure. A big fan of your channel, so it's been really nice. And this is like the first time we actually talked, isn't it?
Yeah, we've communicated on WhatsApp.
Yeah,
and I've got to mention, so you very kindly at least sent me a couple of donations for my collection as well over the last couple of years or so. So I've always been very appreciated. But yeah, it's first time we've spoken, and thank you for saying you're a fan of the channel. You didn't have to say that, but it's that's very nice for you to say so, and I do appreciate that. And
no,
like
yeah,
I
it's
said,
true. Yeah, I love your your demeanor. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does. Everyone says they love certain bits about it. They're slightly different each time, but that to me that's all right. But yeah, no, it's nice. I enjoy doing it, and when I started doing this last year, I was so thrilled when you commented. I think it was the Steve's episode, wasn't it? Red Steve, and you said you'd been on a long drive somewhere. It was a perfect accompaniment for it, and ever since then, I've been desperately trying to make sure you got on here, and I'm glad we've done it now. It's been brilliant, and I've so I said right at the very start, a lot of the stuff on your channel, particularly the documentary stuff, is actually fantastic. The Cancel Game series is fantastic. You are, I don't want to embarrass you, but you are a legend within the YouTube community, and a lot of people I know, a lot of people do look up to you, and you're an absolutely cracking chap to know as well. And I know you've been very favourable in boosting my channel, especially with the video you did last year. You did too, didn't you? You do a yearly shout out video, don't you? And you were kind enough to put me in that last year as well. So I do owe you an awful lot in a way, which is rather good. But this is my way of saying thank you to come on here and do this and tell everybody about your history and the platform to do that. It's been great. It really has been.
That's very kind. Thank you so much.
No, I hope we can do something like this again, and maybe even one day meet up. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh, we better do, yeah.
Yeah, because I guess I've mentioned it again in another episode. It's all these people I speak to on here, but I've met maybe 3 or 4 people ever, so it's bizarre, really. But we will do that one day, certainly.
Worst case scenario, I'll come and see you. You're not that far away, are you? In Midlands or whatever?
Yeah, up this way. I mean, there's a few of you down that way anyway, so piling past this way and a journey up, I'm sure we can sort something out, no problem at all.
Great.
Lovely. Right, well, in that case, I will leave it at that, Pete. Thank you once again for being a guest on Desert Island Games. And like I said right at the very start, and I know Pete will be listening to this on and off. They'll be dipping in and out. They'll listen to a bit, go and do something else, come back a couple of days later. There will be a link to Pete's channel below. Do go and check him out. Some fantastic stuff on there, some great content. You said that Desert Island Games will be coming soon. Maybe next week, maybe the week after. We'll have to see what guest do we have on. I shan't tell you because I don't know who it is yet. I haven't recorded the episode, so I've got no idea. But it'll be another YouTube personality. We'll be able to bring you in line with their gaming history up to date. But that is it for now. Thank you once again, Pete, for coming on. I appreciate your long time this evening to get that sorted out. Because we're watching each other on camera. He's disappearing into the dark at the moment. Because it was light when we started. It's now dark outside.
Past my bedtime now.
That's it. Meet you and me both.
Thanks so much for having me, though.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. And Hope you've all enjoyed that. If you have done, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, tick the bell for the video notifications when they go up on YouTube, if it works properly, because it never does. It never does. I don't know what happens with it anyway. In the meantime, this is the Retro Bear saying thank you very much indeed for your company, and we will see you again very, very soon. But until then, take care and bye for now.